Good afternoon, and
Hello.
thank you for being here today at our Exhale Conference. Very excited to bring you our speakers today and the information that we have along for you, and just so great to see so many familiar faces that we see out there. So thank you again to everyone. We are just looking forward to sharing this information with you today and answering any questions that you may have. But as always, I just want to get this started with Sue doing a little welcome and an introduction. So Sue, I am going to let you take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. And thank you all for coming out. We have such a strong community, and I love it when I notice so many faces that come and join us over and over again. I know Melissa had well over 100 that were registered for this event, and it speaks volumes. This community, this digital community, just has been growing so strongly. And for us, our goal is to answer your needs. So please tell us what you're looking for. We listen, we look at those surveys, we look at that chat. We know, this is a topic that's important to our metastatic community, and we want to make sure we serve in such a thoughtful way, right? So with that being said, we have a lot of expansion with our digital community. So if those of you who don't know that area, that education services, I thought I'd spend a little time on it, just to make sure that you're staying up to date. And please watch for emails, because we now started this roundup email that allows you to see what we did the month before. So what we did in April, right? And the topics and how they're all recorded. And then what we are doing in May and the different topics that are coming up. For example, tonight we're focusing on bone health, in the metastatic community. And that is a speaker series that Erin and I are going to be leading, and having some incredible speakers that are going to talk about movement and how movement can actually support bone health. We have Ask the Experts that is live, and Erin usually hosts those, and just dynamic, back and forth with our community, with our advisors. The last one we did was on sunscreen, so the topics can be a little lighter and others can be a little bit more heavier, but they're all information that you can take home and feel like you're getting a little bit of control and empowerment, and just things that you can do, right? Like, we just want to focus on the things that we can do in a situation that we feel like we're so handcuffed at times. And then the last one that we have is a virtual hangout. And we usually start that one always with some kind of mocktail, because it's just fun. And Erin and her team does a great job doing that. And then they have this food for thought segment. And that you might be familiar with, that food for thought segment. Our registered dietitian team, again, remarkable in the information that they get across to us. And we notice that they're giving so much food as medicine concepts that we took that and we packaged it in a way that it's now called food for thought. So you can get on our website and go under the programs and click on that, and you'll see by the end of the year 48 different food for thoughts, right? And different ways that we're using basil or cilantro, and how it's acts as a digestive aid and helps with nausea, and just giving you tips and tricks as food is medicine. So we do that in the virtual hangout, but we also do it in our cooking webinars. So if you haven't been on those, I know I've seen some faces here that are on there, and I'm sure Erin sees them too. Please join them. They are fun. They're engaging. It's just joyful. Food is joyful, right? And we want to make sure that we're bringing you a lot of topics that not only come into your home with a lot of joy, a lot of comfort, but also a lot of knowledge. And today is one of them. So Melissa, well done putting together quite an agenda today. I love the topics, very unique. Love the speakers. You guys are going to be bringing a lot of information, right there to your fingertips that you can access. And we're going to actually get started with nutrition. And Erin is going to be leading that discussion. Erin should be no stranger to you. So we're going to put her right up there, front and center. Hi there, Erin. Big smiles, of course.
Yeah.
Erin leads our registered dietitian team. She is our director. I love that everybody's smiling right with you, Erin, and you'll see her hosting a lot of our events. You'll see her tonight, but also leading those cooking demos. And then, of course, our nutrition consults and the whole entire Unite for Her programming when it comes to nutrition. We are very, very engaged, very hands-on, and we want to give you access to the tools, to the food, to the resources, to the information with that scientific research behind it. And that was what Erin is so good at and with her team. So Erin, I know you have an incredible presentation for us today. Thank you for spending, I think close to 6+ years with Unite for Her now, right?
I
8?
feel like I'm closer to
Gosh.
9. I
Oh,
know.
stop it.
I know. I know.
My
Time
gosh.
flies when you're having fun.
It's
I know.
just going, it does. Yeah. And you make it like it doesn't feel like a job, which
Oh
is
my
so
gosh.
wonderful.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been
Yeah.
wonderful. So yeah.
All right. So Erin, I'm going to turn it over to you and welcome to Exhale, everybody. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, you
Welcome
got
to
it.
Exhale. I'm happy to kick off our afternoon. I will also be hopping in the kitchen as we wrap up today, but my topic for today, while it's beautiful outside and I feel really energized, what I'm actually going to be talking about today is sleep. And I know Michelle Stortz will be touching on yoga for sleep. I think this is a topic that we've decided to dive a little bit more into with our members, because I know from our perspective, this is a challenge that I hear so often. What are the foods that help with sleep? Our team always asks, how are you sleeping, right? When we're trying to get an assessment of how are you doing? How's your appetite? We know that relationship between how our sleep is and how it affects our day-to-day. So today we're going to talk all about sleep from a nutrition perspective. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you and we will get moving. Okay. So can everyone can see that? All right, so let's get started. So let's talk a little bit about eating for better sleep. And when I am moving through this presentation, we're not talking about essentially foods that will, we think of that quintessential Thanksgiving afternoon, right? Like it just makes us so tired and sluggish. But we're talking about those foods that contain the nutrients that really support our sleep cycle, that contain those nutrients that are important for good sleep. So not necessarily the foods that will put us asleep at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but ones that we really should be thinking about, especially if trying to get good sleep is one of your goals that you're looking at and you're working towards. So let's get started. So I wanted to kick off a little stat from the National Library of Medicine. A 2019 study showed breast cancer survivors who were between 6 months and 5 years post-diagnosis, 78% had above average sleep difficulties. Now, I know with Exhale, our members here with us today are on ongoing treatment, and we know survivorship can mean lots of different things to our members. And I wanted to include this stat because that is a staggering number, right? That is the majority of people have some difficulty of sleeping through their treatment, post-active treatment, wherever you are in your treatment regimen. And I share this with you because I'm not sure that all of our members understand that this is such a prevalent problem. It's one thing if you're on a course of steroids, and we know that that can really affect energy and sleep and keeping up, but just any sort of treatment, surgeries, treatment changes, how our hormones are affected through this whole process, right? All of that can have an effect on sleep. And we are seeing that in the majority of patients. So when we think about food and how food can be a supportive element to sleep, what do the experts say? So as you may have imagined, first and foremost, experts that study sleep say we want you to eat a variety of plant foods because we want you to get all of those nutrients to support our day-to-day body processes. So we want you to get the vitamins, we want you to get the minerals, we want you to get the fiber. A question that comes up quite a bit, and I'm thinking even of an example yesterday during a consult I had, was a member asking, what's the best seed I should have, was actually the question I got yesterday, right? And I always say, listen, I wish that were the case, that there was the one best. But variety really is key, because when you get a variety of plant foods in your day-to-day, you get a little from here, you get a little from there, right? So you mix and match. This food has these nutrients, that food has that nutrients. And so you are ensuring that you're getting the full scope of what our body needs to function at its best. And that includes supporting sleep habits. Now, we do know that there are some nutrients that really support overall sleep cycles. And I am going to review 6 with you and kind of touch a little bit about how they are supportive. And then we'll get into what are some of those food sources. So you may want to screenshot in just a little bit as you're thinking of what are some of these foods to add in. So the first, I think, is a nutrient that most of us think of when we think of trying to support good sleep, and that is melatonin. So melatonin is a sleep hormone. It is not a sedative. And our body naturally makes melatonin from the amino acid tryptophan. And tryptophan is found in lots of different foods, but so is actual melatonin, right? Like that actual end result. We find it in foods, and we'll list this again. We find melatonin naturally in things like oats, our milk, tomatoes, actually tart cherry juice, which is why I have some cherries here, have quite high amount of natural melatonin. And so sometimes even having a little 4-ounce serving of tart cherry juice before bed can really support melatonin that helps support sleep. Some studies, some evidence has shown that plant sources tend to have higher concentrations compared to animal sources of melatonin. And one of those theories as to why those that follow a Mediterranean way of eating tend to sleep a little bit better, because that way of eating really encourages a lot of plant foods and a lot of variety: fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, whole grains, legumes, high fiber foods. So part of that why individuals may have better quality sleep is because of those food choices. And melatonin can be particularly helpful in older adults, in the aging population in general, because with aging, we also naturally see changes in the circadian rhythm, and melatonin helps to support our circadian sleep cycle. So as that naturally declines with age, incorporating foods that have melatonin can support good health. So we'll talk again, we'll mention all of those foods. You can take a little screenshot once we move forward. Next is omega-3 fatty acids. So there was a random control trial published in the journal Nutrients. And what it looked at were participants that were given omega-3 supplements. They found that participants tended to fall asleep faster and they stayed asleep longer. Now, why does this happen? Because omega-3s help, again, support good circadian rhythm. So it is supporting our overall sleep behavior. In addition, we know omega-3s help reduce inflammation, and we know our fatty acids, especially from our foods like our fatty fish, also contain vitamin D and tryptophan, which support other sleep nutrients. So it's really a nutrient that is supportive overall, and a lot of those food sources contain multi-nutrients, that helps the big picture. So then with that being said, let's talk about vitamin D, which is also one of the circadian pacemakers. So it really helps keep us on cycle. So it helps keep things aligned. It helps it work regularly. Again, that study that was published in Nutrients actually looked at serum vitamin D levels. And what they found was participants that tended to have low serum vitamin D, lower than 20 nanograms per milliliter. Normal is anywhere from 20 and above, typically 20 to 50 nanograms per milliliter. But those that had lower than 20 tended to have poor sleep. And when those numbers were brought up to within normal range, they found that sleep was improved. Another study that was published in the journal Sleep, looking at 3,000 men in particular, showed that those that had lower serum vitamin D tended to have poorer quality and quantity of sleep. So we know that vitamin D can be difficult to get in food. It's not in many foods, which is why many of us and our physicians may say we need to supplement with vitamin D. And we say that's definitely worth having a conversation with your physician if you feel that that may be appropriate. And as always, you want to talk to your team about having your serum vitamin D levels checked. And if it's lower or out of normal range, is supplementation appropriate? If so, how much? Or do you want to really sort of work on getting it from food, maybe a little bit from some healthy sunlight, but definitely worth getting that baseline to see where you are. Okay, other nutrients. So our final three, so magnesium. So we might not think of magnesium as a sleep nutrient, but it plays a really important role. So the National Institute of Health, the NIH, says 48% of Americans get too little magnesium. And why it's important for sleep is because magnesium is what is considered an anxiolytic. In other words, that's a fancy term for it is a nutrient that helps us calm down. It helps reduce anxiety. It helps a person relax. Magnesium also plays a role in supporting circadian rhythm. So making sure that you are incorporating magnesium foods throughout your day. We also know that magnesium supports slow wave sleep. This is also the form of sleep that we sort of think of as the rest and recover, which means when we rest and recover, we get that good quality sleep. We allow our immune system, it's supportive of our immune health. It also helps with tissue and cellular repair. So it helps with that overall rest and recovery. So making sure we get magnesium. Iron, definitely a food we might not think of, or a mineral, I should say, that we might not think of, but iron is involved in several processes linked in the brain to sleep physiology. In fact, in a review of studies, those with iron deficiency anemia found to have more night awakenings and shorter sleep compared to those that have normal iron levels. And in this study, when iron deficiency was resolved, people slept better and they slept longer. So if you are working with your team on stabilizing or working towards normal iron levels, also look at, could this possibly be affecting my sleep? And then finally, we're looking at fiber. So a study that that was published in the Journal of Clinical Sleep Medicine found that those that were eating a diet high in fiber, they were getting adequate fiber from different plant foods. Those individuals achieved more, again, restorative, slow wave sleep. In addition, as many of us know, fiber reduces that blood sugar spike. It really helps to support healthy blood sugar. And that helps when we see those sudden urges of blood sugar, that can be linked to lower melatonin levels, right? So if we're able to stabilize that blood sugar, it can help support that natural increase of melatonin as we move through the night and sleep. So having fiber is really important. So let's jump over into, well, what are all these foods that we want to be thinking of incorporating in our day? So let's talk about plant food. So again, we always want to think about variety of our food choices, but let's kind of get into those nitty-gritty foods that maybe we want to think about making sure we get in our day. So from a fruit perspective, we're looking at things like grapes, strawberries. I mentioned those tart cherries, tomatoes, bananas, avocado. Our vegetables, right? Peppers, mushrooms. I'm making a wonderful nighttime quesadilla that is a wonderful savory dinner to have before we go to bed. And we're incorporating a lot of these vegetables. Thinking of nuts and seeds, especially with those healthy omega fats that support our circadian rhythm, pumpkin, chia, flax, walnuts, cashews, almonds. And then of course, a variety of different beans, our whole grains supporting that fiber, and even our plant milks. So plant milks, just like cow's milk, is fortified with vitamin D. So it's one of those food choices that can be a good source of vitamin D, as can fortified cereals. So I mentioned that vitamin D is not found in many foods, mushrooms, the yolk of eggs, and then fortified cereals and plant milks are some of those main sources. And then hopping over to some of our healthy animal foods that we can incorporate, I just mentioned eggs, of course, those fatty fish for those omega-3s, other seafood that contain other nutrients, trout, oysters, if you love them. If you love them, great. Cow's milk, yogurt, and then our lean proteins, chicken, poultry, especially to support those good iron levels. And I will make sure that this presentation is available for anyone that wants to come back and review this list again. So while we think of foods and how they can be supportive of our overall sleep pattern, one thing we want to be mindful of, all right, well, what are those foods that could have a potential negative impact on sleep, right? And some of us may really resonate with this picture of this poor woman that just wants to get to sleep, right? So when we talk about healthy sleep, obviously the first thing that I think comes to mind for a lot of us is caffeine, right? If you are sensitive to caffeine, you want to limit the time of day. So not having it into the afternoon or too late in the afternoon, or finding, if you enjoy a cup of coffee or a tea with caffeine, finding that sweet spot as to when you want to stop during the day so that it doesn't affect your sleep, because we know caffeine has that stimulant effect. We do know alcohol, even moderate, small amounts of alcohol, absolutely throw off our sleep cycle. So while some of us may feel like, well, alcohol puts me to sleep. If I have a glass of wine, it makes me tired. It really does impact the long-term overall quality of your sleep, alcohol in general. So you may find that if you enjoy a glass of wine with a celebration or with dinner, fall asleep, but shortly thereafter, you're waking up and your quality really goes downhill. And then finally, eating too late. So having foods too late in the evening, you're not having enough time for your food to move and digest in your belly. It could contribute to side effects and symptoms like acid reflux, indigestion, which can also really just be, just can really keep us awake or make it uncomfortable to try to fall asleep. So really think about those things when you're assessing your own sleep habits. I wanted to also bring this up because it's sort of a double-edged sword sometimes, right? So, we're trying to do everything we can. We want to sleep really well. I cannot wait to hear from Michelle and what she has to say about yoga. But we also know that the reverse, poor quality of sleep can also have an effect on our appetite. And this is really interesting to share because I always think more information and awareness is really good, so that if you are trying to make healthy, be mindful of your food choices, assessing your sleep quality can kind of be that awareness that you have of like, oh, I had a terrible sleep last night. No wonder I'm reaching for this, that, or the other thing, right? So let's look at first our hunger hormones. So leptin and ghrelin. So leptin is our hunger hormone that causes satiety. Ghrelin is our hunger hormone, right? It's turned on when we feel hungry. Well, that balancing act is known to be thrown off after just short periods of inadequate sleep. So if you feel like your hunger and your appetite is all over the place, and you recognize that maybe you haven't been sleeping that well, know that those two can be connected. And that's a really great way to sort of talk you through, okay, what could potentially be going on. We find that when a person is having sleep deprivation, not great quality of sleep, they're more likely to have increased food consumption without increased energy output, right? So essentially they're eating more without being more active. So they're in a positive calorie balance, which for those of us that are trying to maintain a healthy weight or get to a healthy weight, this is part of that healthy weight puzzle. So again, another point of awareness just to think about. And then it also appears some studies have looked at the types of foods that an individual may be reaching for. And so we find that those, again, that are not getting good quality sleep may reach for some of those more high calorie, less nutrient dense foods. So those foods that are a little bit more indulgent. So again, really interesting how sleep, not only our food affects our sleep, but the other way around. So as we're really trying to be mindful of our overall food choices and sort of what's going on and sort of assessing our day to day, it's really important to be aware of, how last night could really be affecting today. And so with that, hopefully this was eye-opening for you. Hopefully, this gave you some information about how food and nutrition, of course, support all of our day-to-day and our health aspects, including our sleep cycle. And I know we have about a minute left before we move on to our next speaker. So if we have any questions, happy to take them. Oh, Melissa, I love that. 4 ounces of cherry juice is a great swap out for red wine. Oh my gosh, I love that. Even with like a little spritzer of like a mineral water for some bubbles or something on top. Love that.
I learned that from Dr. Mo.
Oh,
Karen.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, I couldn't take credit for that. That was Sue. Yes, for sure.
But I love that idea. Yeah, I love that. If you're, it's a wonderful mocktail version, something to enjoy a little bit before bed. So I love that.
Yeah.
I was wondering if there was anything other than cherry juice, because I get sick when I eat cherries. So I was wondering, is there any other substitute you can do?
Well, not with the high degree of melatonin. That's a great question. So, we might think, well, could pomegranate juice do the same, or grape juice do the same? They're sort of in the same family in terms of those colors, but unfortunately, those other foods don't have to that high degree that your tart cherry juice does.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, great question. I'm glad you asked. What can I eat fruit before bed? So Mary, any kind of fruit, that you enjoy. We've gone through some of those fruits that really support a good sleep habit. So any of which, it makes for a really great snack. It makes for a nice little sweet treat before bed. It's not a food choice that's heavy, so it's not going to increase the risk of having that indigestion or acid reflux that might keep you up. So any of those fruit choices would be a great option. And Heidi, I'm glad you mentioned cherry juice puts me right to sleep. Great evening drink instead of wine. I love that. Low sugar cherry juice. Faye. So I just recommend tart cherry juice unsweetened. So you want simple, straightforward ingredients, no added sweetener on the back. And again, you don't need much. So we're really looking at maybe a 4-ounce serving. And so as long as you're getting, good quality, simple, straightforward, just that tart cherry juice, that's the type that you want to be shooting for, Faye. Love that.
Such great questions. And Erin, that was fantastic. I was jotting down some notes here myself, and I will be getting that PowerPoint presentation
Definitely.
from you too.
Yeah.
That is great. Well, as we all know and love Erin, and she's always, her and the registered dietitian team are always so fantastic with their information. And certainly if you have questions, continue to put that in the chat. And Erin is going to come back with us, at the end and give us some more tips and tricks there too.
Exactly.
Yeah, you see that one in the, yep.
Thank you, Heidi, for pointing that right. The keyword is tart.
Yes.
Yep. Great.
Yeah. Perfect. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Erin. I can't wait to see what you're going to, the savory quesadilla that you're going to make for us a little bit later. Very excited about that. Wonderful. Thank you. Wonderful. That's great. Well, as I get ready to bring on our next speaker, Cal, we know that some of you have already have heard from Cal before, but I would like to just read a little bit of background. Okay. So Cal is the founder and executive director of Heal Well. And if you didn't know this, Cal is also an award-winning writer, published researcher, international speaker, and as I said, the founder of Heal Well, which is a nonprofit whose mission is to touch, to teach, and to advocate for a broader role for massage therapists in serious illness care. They have trained Heal Well and the facilitators in Cal there. They have all trained thousands of healthcare providers in skills of resiliency, self-awareness, communication, and forgiveness. And they have dedicated their careers to the advocacy in healthcare, massage therapy, and social justice, and revolutionizing education for healthcare providers. And this is exactly why we wanted to bring Cal in today, because there's always I get excited to learn and to hear new things. So today's session about how to, let me see if I can get the correct title here. Let me make
Oh,
sure.
I don't even think we have it yet. So don't even try. Like we're going to get there. Don't worry about it.
Okay, well then I'm just gonna let you take it away. I'm gonna let you give the correct title and
Awesome.
just go for it, Cal. Thank you.
Thank you. I feel like every time I log on to a meeting with you guys, like little cartoon hearts come out of my eyes. And I think the same thing happens when everybody sees Erin come on. It's just so exciting to be with you all. And I'm always excited every time that I get to come back and I see that you all knew that I was going to be talking, and so many of you still came. So that's very exciting. I'm going to do my best to say some new stuff, and we'll just see what happens. So I'm going to try to share my screen. Okay, so far so good. Whoops, just kidding. Okay, this chat box in the middle of my screen. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about, and I'm going to kind of ask a lot of questions and offer sort of invitations for us to wonder together about some things. So I'm calling this, You Got This, Getting Clear and Guiding Your Own Journey. And so you'll just see where we're going to go. It's going to be great. So where we're not going is a bunch of tips and pointers about like how to express yourself or how to take charge of your journey or to be in that place, you know, how to ask questions and what to ask. I feel like, you know, the internet is full of incredible resources from people who know a lot more about that stuff than I do. We're not going to do step-by-step ways to make the most of your next appointment, all that kind of stuff. We'll leave that to people who are good at that, because if you don't have sort of the underlying sense of how to do those things, if you're not someone who is good at asking those questions or, you know, really saying those things, then you can have all the pamphlets and all the resources and watch all the webinars on earth, and those things won't sort of materialize. So we're going to talk about the barriers to being a part of your own life, actually, which might sound strange to some of you, but it's really easy to be a passenger. And there are places where we can really start to notice, like, am I riding along or am I driving? Am I at least holding the map? So we're going to talk about obstacles, questions, some of the stories that we tell that maybe aren't serving us or that we're willing to believe from other people that wind up acting as a map for us kind of by accident. And we're headed toward liberation, or at least the idea that there are steps we can take that can bring us to a place where we do feel like we have some choices, and maybe more choices than even at this moment you feel like are available. So you all know much better than I do that being diagnosed with cancer is kind of like reading this really terrible job description, right? And so the demands are, you have to have decent skills of negotiation, right? Negotiating with your loved ones, with your physicians, with hospital systems, insurance companies. You have to have strong communication skills, again, with all of those same sort of stakeholders that I just mentioned. You don't have to, but it can be helpful to have research skills. And even that idea of like, what is research? You know, we think about Dr. Google and the various places where we can find information, but how to really find credible information and how to know when you've reached your limit in terms of how much information you want. Deciding how you're going to progress with your treatment plan. And like, you know, Erin just led us through all these possibilities around food. And so when you're deciding meal planning and how you're going to manage how you're going to eat based on symptoms and availability and just what you actually like, you've got to bring some problem solving into that picture. So that's a hard job sort of all by itself. And then when we add feeling the feels, and that's kind of what we're going to explore a little bit today, it makes any of those skills that didn't already feel like you had them solidly feel a little more uncertain, a little bit harder to sort of capitalize on. So we're going to kind of wander through some of the things that get in our way in terms of, and this is what I'm saying us, because these are things that happen to people. We're going to couch it sort of as part of you as a person living with cancer, but these are not necessarily unique But there are some unique challenges that relate specifically to what you're dealing with as you make treatment decisions and try to live the best life you can live. So I want to start with just a brief note about hope, and that our society loves hope, right? Like it's the best. And that the people who live the longest and the best are the most hopeful. That's sort of like this one of the big stories that we tell. And I don't know that I disagree with that, but I think what I want to invite us to consider is that hope can be a seriously limiting belief depending on how we're practicing it. And so if we're not careful about it, hope can really be about expectation. It can put us in sort of an if I, then this kind of a thing that can be a little bit exhausting and is really about pushing away what's here and kind of being in a perpetual state of hoping for something else. And so I feel like poor hope, right? Like hope, we drive hope like it's like a Ford Pinto, but like it's actually this Maserati, right? So our options in terms of how we practice hope and how we experience it, what if we notice the ways in which we super sort of like naturally and neurotypically think about hope as I want what's happening now to stop, and I want what I'm imagining that's better to happen. Instead, if we sort of pull back and we think about hope, instead of sort of like holding that rope really tightly so we don't slip down, what if we think about it as a type of openness to possibility? That hope is actually about not knowing what might happen next. And that one of the many possibilities about what might happen next is something that I would choose, or something that's just different than what I could possibly imagine. And that the essential truth of our inability to know what will happen in the next moment can actually be a buoying force. That if we then, we don't know what then, the world has taught us to believe that if I drink tart cherry juice, I will sleep great. And chances are decent, you will, but you might not, right? And so what might happen instead? Maybe you stay up and you read a book that totally changes your life, right? That's one option that you hadn't maybe thought about. Maybe you, in your insomnia, you go through the closet and you find those slippers that you've been missing for months, and then you put them on your feet and then you fall asleep, right? It's about knowing that things will change, and that this idea of sort of this too shall pass can also be a source of hopefulness, or of believing that something else could happen that I can't currently imagine. So when you're living with cancer, what I hear is that it's kind of like everything everywhere all at once, and that there's this kind of background or not so background program running in your life all the time, that in addition to work, kids, family, pets, all of the things that were already happening in your life, now you always have this sort of additional concern that's happening. And it can make it really hard to slow down and to really make choices where you have an opportunity to make choices. It starts to feel like this gushing river is just normal, that it's what should be. And so my job is just to like try not to go under, but the pace of this is fine. The way that it's like rolling over itself, this is just normal. And it can be really easy to get habituated to that pace, whether it's an outwardly really busy pace or just an emotionally and mentally busy pace. That's not, I mean, if you think about being, for instance, in this water, we had crazy rain last week, and this is actually a sort of canyon near where I live that doesn't usually have water in it. And so in a way, right, that was kind of your life before cancer. Like the canyon was hanging out and now there's water going through it all the time. And how do I slow down and say, okay, where are the places that I can say, I do want this, I don't want this, I want a little bit more of this, I want a little bit less of that. So, oh, I didn't think that video would play. That's very exciting. I couldn't get it to play for me, but there you go. So what if we build our own dam? What if one of the places near that creek is a place where there's lots of beavers hanging out? And if you know anything about beavers, I really enjoy watching them do their work. And so I've done a bunch of reading about how they behave. And basically, beavers go to the place where they can hear the water moving fast, and then they start to build a dam, and they build that dam so they can control the flow. You can see that there's water still flowing over it, but the goal for them is to make a home for themselves and for their families where they can have deeper, stiller water and a place to take care of themselves. And the dam itself actually is sort of a protective barrier and helps to keep out predators, but they build that for themselves. So what would it look like for you to sort of build your own dam? And if there are parts of your life that are feeling a lot like that rushing creek, where are the places where you can put a stick here or a tree there, or maybe a whole big wad of leaves, and sort of maybe by asking questions, maybe by just being curious, maybe by saying no. And notice I didn't say notice just by saying no, because saying no is a very big thing. It's a big thing no matter what's happening in our lives, but it's definitely a big thing when you're saying no to maybe a loved one or a healthcare provider who you feel has maybe your best interest in mind, but still what they're suggesting isn't something that you might choose. But it's hard to notice that you're feeling that when the water is running really fast. So what can you do? And I don't know, right? I'm just inviting you to consider that, like, sort of, if there's a goal of what I'm sharing today, it's to invite ambivalence. When we think about sort of the information about how people change their behavior, the first thing that has to happen is you have to wonder what would happen if I did something differently. So this is really just all about saying, you know, does the dam image connect with you as how you've sort of organized your life? Or does it feel a little bit more like the rushing water? Or is it somewhere in between? And how does it feel to think about that? I don't know what you need, but if you can slow down just even a little bit to say, oh, yeah, is this a good pace? Is this a pace that I want to change? And that, you know, I was talking with a colleague that I do some presenting with sometimes, who has been living with metastatic cancer for 8 years. And she said, you know, one of the hardest things for her is that she's the person who fixes stuff in her family. When stuff goes down, everybody calls her. And that she has slowly gotten better at saying, I'm real busy, like, going through cancer treatment right now, or I'm feeling really tired because I just had an infusion. And so I'm sorry that Aunt so-and-so is going through that, but y'all are going to have to figure it out, because right now I'm using my resources and my energy to make the most of my treatment, to take care of myself. And that we have to sort of shift the story of that being selfish, and that really taking care of ourselves can be a priority without this extra layer of, oh gosh, I'm abandoning the people that I love. Oh, chat popped up. Yeah, right. We're all the doers. Absolutely. And I feel like there's a well-documented pattern of when you become seriously ill, you feel like you really want to make it okay for everyone else. So it's sort of like a double dose. You know, you add the conditioning of being a cultural female in Western culture, and then you add this piece of having a disease that you're dealing with, and it really amps up that story that we have to fix it for everybody. So, you know, you may be watching your life with an obstructed view ticket. You know, when you're looking for tickets for a concert or a show, the obstructed view tickets are always cheaper, right? Because you know you're gonna have like a pole in the middle of your view, or you're gonna be like behind the Jumbotron. So you can hear what's happening, but you can't totally see it. Like even this, it's an orchestra, right? Like you're probably not gonna be staring at the person with the violin and going, oh, I wish I could see them. But you know you're not seeing the whole thing, right? So, and there's like a low grade or maybe higher than low grade anxiety about the whole time you're sort of leaning, trying to like get a better view. And instead of just moving up to a better seat, we just keep leaning, right? We just keep wondering, oh, I wonder what it might be like if I could see the whole thing. So this wondering could maybe be the beginning of, I wonder what it would be like if I made more choices or felt more like I could say, oh, I feel you saying that you think I should do this, or, you know, thank you for this unsolicited advice you've offered me about how I should eat or dress, or, you know, whatever it is that I should be doing according to you. And I want to have a view that's about what I'm feeling and the decisions that I'm making, and that that you really feel like you're sort of holding your own seat in that place. this is one of the places where, and I want to be really clear that I don't share this to demonize physicians. I share this to highlight how bad humans are at communicating, and that we are really bad as a species at understanding that the person we're talking to doesn't know the things that we know. And without even realizing it, we leave stuff out, and then we go, right? And everybody nods, and then we go off in our separate ways. And there's quite a bit of data about physician and patient communication, and there are a variety of studies that have been done where patients and physicians were primed with communication strategies that ultimately improved the whole encounter and patient satisfaction as well as outcomes. But I think what I want to highlight is this piece about communication, and that it is really incumbent upon us to share with the people we love and the people who are caring for us as much as we can about what's happening for us, whether it be symptoms, whether it be fears, whether it be in 6 months, I'd like to do X, Y, or Z. Here's a thing that I'd like to do, but it feels impossible to me. Can we talk about this thing? And that this is a place where it's real easy to be complicit, because we have kind of this assumption that doctors know, and we have kind of a cultural deference to healthcare providers, whether it be nurses, psychologists, whoever it is. They're sharing information with us and we're nodding, like we agree, like we get it, like we're taking it on. And then we walk out of the office, the appointment, the support group, whatever it is, and we go, what the hell did they say? But they think they did a great job because we were nodding and smiling the whole time, right? And they go, makes sense. And you're like, uh-huh. And then off you go, right? So can we slow down and know that I own this time? This time is actually about me and my life. I'm not inconveniencing this physician by asking questions. I'm not, spending too much time talking in the support group by sharing truly what's going on with me. And this is the thing that we can support each other in, because it is very hard to take up space. We're not great at this as people. And I think when we become sick and we're not able to maybe do some of the things we could do before, we really start to take on that story of being a burden. And it further disempowers us and makes us feel like, well, I'm probably the only person who doesn't understand this, or, they've already spent 9 whole minutes with me. I don't want to take up more time. And so, take up more time. This is your time. This is your life. These are your decisions. And it's you're well within your right to ask when you don't know and when you wonder. So another thing that I think holds people back from making decisions that can support living now, as well as prepare for what living will look like 6 months, a year, 3 years from now, is this idea that we can't know. I don't know what kind of care I'll want 6 months from now because I don't know what's going to happen. Okay, well, that's really true all the time, right? I mean, it doesn't stop us when we think we're well from making a 5-year plan, right? We still don't know what's going to happen, but we sort of buy this story that disease somehow is a specific type of not knowing that sort of paralyzes us from planning. And so, again, when I was talking with my friend about this, she said, it really, she's also a nurse practitioner, and she was just saying that it's really hard to imagine. I mean, this is why people don't complete their advanced directives, because they're like, why don't, there's so many ways that I could become debilitated, that, I could need help, that how could I possibly account for these things? And while that's sort of true, it's never a waste of time to talk out loud with the people who will be part of your decision team, or with someone, just even someone that you trust, who will normalize your fears and concerns, to just say like, yeah, it is really hard to decide, what I might want, or like, what does quality of life mean? As I sit here today, able to eat and move and do all the things that I want to be doing, I imagine that if this thing was no longer possible, that would be a turning point. But then you get to that place and it's not quite the turning point you imagined. So the more you can just invite that uncertainty into your daily experiences and conversations, the less it becomes, we need to sit down and have a conversation, that you just sort of get to know you and the people that you love by inviting those conversations into everyday life. I think these kind of go together, this idea that I can either focus on staying alive or I can plan for when I won't be alive anymore. And I can't do these things at the same time. And it's very easy to slip into that. And certainly this is one of those places where you have lots of other people in your picture, right? And so I don't pretend that what you want and how you want to communicate your needs is what's most important and what will drive this, because you maybe have a spouse, you maybe have children, you maybe have adult children. There are many other people who we could consider stakeholders in this process. And everybody's in a different place with what they're willing and able to discuss. We have to invite ourselves to be aware of how much of that is feeling like drag or ballast on what we really want for ourselves. And what's my tolerance in terms of like, I'm feeling like I want to talk about this particular issue. And I know if I bring it up to this person, they're going to kind of shut me down and I'm not going to be able to really explore it. It doesn't mean I'm going to leave them out entirely, but while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to talk with this person about it because I think they might be more open to what is happening for me. And I will have more space to feel what I'm feeling and to wonder what I'm wondering. So how many cooks are in your kitchen, in your treatment kitchen, your cancer kitchen, whatever you want to call it? Certainly you're in there. And I say certainly, but you might not be the one at the pot, right? Like you might be like all the way down in the end, that guy sort of looking at everybody like, what is going on over there? And it's real easy to find yourself in that place. So how do we balance the way that other people make their opinions really known, and to feel almost like I am actually here to make you happy. And so if you want me to do chemotherapy, if you want me to do radiation, well, I guess I should do that. And that it's not even just people who are alive and present in our lives. Are we still hearing the voices of our long deceased parents saying, oh, you're such a quitter, or you never follow through with anything? Like how many voices and opinions are in there kind of pushing on, this is your life. These are your minutes, your days, your months, years that you get to choose. And are you noticing like somebody's throwing in some time and you don't like time, right? You don't want those Chipotle peppers in there. That's not your flavor. But people can sneak stuff into your pot, and then before you know it, you've got a soup that you don't really want to be eating. You can change your mind. It's not simple. I don't mean to suggest that it's simple, but how many of us tell the story that it's not fair for me to change my mind, right? I've gotten everybody on board with, we're going to do this surgery, or we're going to do whatever the thing is. Everybody has agreed, this is the direction that we're going. And then you're a month in, you're a couple days, a week in, and you're like, this doesn't feel like what I want to be doing. Or I'm having symptoms or side effects that I didn't expect, or just, I feel like I'm not the boss of this and it's uncomfortable. You can change your mind. And that this is another place where we really can and need to support each other in recognizing that it's not your job to make everyone else feel okay. That changing your mind is a hard thing to do, but it's a really essential thing to do. And I feel like when we know that we could change our minds and we don't, there's this sort of sense of self-abandonment that happens that complicates the whole thing even more. And so this is where you really need to build your own dam, because it's hard to even notice that you might want to change your mind if things are going so quickly. And if you're sort of making these emotional and mental pacts with the other people, those other cooks in your kitchen, and you really feel like, oh, how am I going to manage this if I say, I don't want to do this thing anymore, or I want to do it differently? I'm sure none of you tell these stories, but just in case, you're not, by taking charge of your own life and by saying what you do and don't want, being annoying. There's no such thing as asking too many questions, certainly when it comes to the life and death choices that you find yourself making on a regular basis. Changing your mind all the time, I bet it's not all the time. And it's okay to change your mind. Making it harder for everyone. You can't make anything anyway for another person. You do you, and then they respond. And that is the same for you, that you might have feelings as a result of something that someone has done. And someone else may have feelings as a result of something you've done, but you didn't make them have those feelings. You're not letting everyone down by taking care of yourself. And people will tell you that you are letting them down. And so having that, at least one backup person who can be like, yep, I hear that. That's a loud sound coming at you about letting people down, but doesn't make it accurate. And, you know, when people we love and trust say things, we believe them to be true, but they're not necessarily true. And being able to hear the difference, I think it's really important to have that deep well of still water behind this barrier that you've made for yourself, where you can say, okay, what do I do here? How do I keep my seat knowing that this decision that I want to make feels clear to me? And that is the important and enlivening thing about this. So what else? I mean, I don't ever profess to be an expert. I just like to ask questions and then wonder with my fellow humans. Does any of this make sense? Do you all have questions, things you want to add?
I have
Cal,
to
I'll
admit,
jump in real quick. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I always feel real hesitation to go back and say, yeah, I think we need to do more, or, you know, because you're talking to a doctor, and that's a real struggle for me, because I can advocate for myself when I'm really, really strong about what I think I should be doing. But then when it's like, I feel like they're not doing enough. I mean, I really want to say something, but I kind of back off.
Do you have a sense about what it is that makes you back off?
Offending them, you
Mhm.
know, burning my bridges. I might have someone I recently just changed doctors, but I mean, I don't feel like they're not, you know, doing everything at my best interest, but I feel like sometimes I just want to say, can you do something more? You know, and
Yeah.
sometimes in the past, I guess my big hang up was I had to have oral surgery done one time. And the doctor said to me, asking that something that I had seen, I know, you know, take it with a grain of salt. I saw it online, but still I was uncomfortable and I wanted to ask him about it. And he said, oh, so you believe the internet over me? Maybe I don't want to touch you. And I was in tears by the time I left that office. So that is the kind of thing that I've ran into in the past. I'm seriously afraid to do that with my cancer oncologist doctor.
Yeah.
So that's a huge fear for me, that they'll question everything and say, well, maybe I don't do your surgery, you know. And I was like devastated at that time, because I really did need the surgery.
Yeah. Yeah, that is some really terrible doctoring that you experienced.
Yeah, so that's my hesitation of trying to talk to the oncologist, because I want to offend her, and I don't want her to think, oh, I'm always seeing this on the internet or just a hearsay on these groups that I'm in. Like, I asked a question about, you know, the medicine that I was taking, and why, you know, like, can I have the test done? Because, you know, I've seen more and more about how this particular test is being taken advantage of, and if my insurance covers it, I sure would like to have it. And, you know, I feel negativity inside me from their end, so I don't know where to go with that.
Yeah, well, and I think I feel like there are a couple things happening. I mean, it's no small thing to get a second opinion, and it's no small thing to have the trajectory of your life changed by a doctor who feels threatened by you wanting to be involved in your care. And so I feel like, you know, can you get a case manager? Is there someone, a nurse in that office who will advocate for you? I feel like that's becoming a more standard piece. I think this is one of the challenges, is that we find ourselves doing these things alone. It's totally reasonable and well within your rights to want to know if your insurance will pay for something before you decide to do it. And that shouldn't be something that you're spending your whole life on the phone trying to find out. That is something that you can expect from your oncologist. And, you know, it may be a case of shopping for an oncologist who is open to this and really being able to say, here's how I behave as a patient. I have a lot of questions. I do a lot of research on my own. It helps me to feel better. And I'd really like to work with you as a partner in this care. And so I might ask questions that might make you feel like, I don't think you know what you're doing, but this is my life. And I really want to feel like we're in this together. And do you have someone that you can take with you to your appointment? You can say, okay, let's rehearse this. Let's talk about, like, if I don't say this, will you say it? Because I think that it really, we do. I mean, we all, like, I've been working on not getting weighed when I go for my physical because the BMI is not an indicator of health. And it's real hard because they're like, just get on the scale. It's no big deal. And you're like, no, it is a big deal. Like, I don't want to support this happening, but it depends how forceful the nurse or the provider is who says, no, just get on the scale. And so it's not easy always to advocate for ourselves, but we really have to come back to, like, that feeling that you feel inside you when you know you're concerned and you're afraid to speak up. That's a feeling you should be free of. And so what does that mean in terms of maybe this isn't the best provider for you? And just the feelings that we have about our providers do affect our outcomes and do affect the quality of our lives. So settling for someone who says they won't treat you because you ask a question feels like maybe it's time to do some shopping. And I don't know what resources you have where you are, but I feel like settling is one of the ways that we wind up in the passenger seat, is we go, oh, well, you know, I guess that's just how, you're right. I shouldn't question the doctor. They know better than me. And they don't. They know what's out there, but they don't know what it's like in your body. They don't know what you're worrying about. So you're well within your right to speak up and to keep reminding yourself that this is your life and your someday death. And you would like that second part to come much later. And if you're not willing to collaborate with me, we might have a problem.
Gave me a lot of tips that I'm going to try, especially with taking the fund.
You know, Cal, I really enjoy the whole concept of building your own dam and us being deserving of, to be heard. I actually go into my medical providers with a list on my cell phone and all these questions, and they're okay with it. And I do feel that I'm being heard. And, you know, 24 years later in my diagnosis, it's home away from home. You know, my medical providers they're my family. So I'm being heard.
I've been going to the doctor for long. This is Jill. I've been going to the doctor for a long time, and she's been great to work with. And even though I sometimes feel like the appointments are on autopilot, because from her standpoint, I'm doing very well, but I continue like a broken record to talk about my side effects. And I don't want to say that she takes for granted that I'm doing well from like an oncology standpoint, but I feel horrible all the time. And I guess my thing is I want that validation. You know, of course I want positive or good tests, but I also want the validation that I feel the way that I do, that I may try to look good because you get that, oh, you look so good, or you're dressed so cute or whatever. I'm not feeling well. I need to go home and take a nap or whatever. I feel sometimes even in the medical community, because they are attending, you know, other patients that have needs. And I get that not that you're discarded, it's just, or there's this, maybe they take it or take it, I don't want to say take advantage, or do they just, they see your progress and then you're kind of like out of sight, out of mind, kind of high by, you know, type thing. I'm still not feeling well, you know, and this is an ongoing thing. And I don't know what else to say when I go into my appointments, that I still struggle with all these side effects. I don't know how to reframe it, that it doesn't sound like a broken record over and over and over again, but that's my reality.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like, first, I'm very sorry that that is happening. And I wish that was less common than I understand it to be. I feel like this is a place where, and it sucks that we have to do this, that we find ourselves having to manage up, right? And that, like, so I don't have a cancer diagnosis, but as a trans person, I am constantly trying to get providers to see who I am. And when they don't, I have to do that calculus of like, oh, I don't want to annoy them. But when they've read my intake and see that I'm married to a woman, for instance, and they say, well, you should ask your husband about this, a little part of me dies inside. You don't see me, you don't care about me. And so I will say to you, I need you to read my form, because I actually don't have a husband, I have a wife. And here are some things about me that you should know, because you have this form in front of you. And so maybe when it comes to your symptoms, it is about saying, so listen, every time I come, I tell you about these side effects that I'm having. And I feel like your focus is on the things that are going well. And what I'm telling you is that clear scans don't mean anything, because I can't sleep, I can't eat, I can't, whatever my symptoms are, my quality of life is not good. And as my doctor, I want you to care about that. And I'm feeling like you don't care about it. And some version of that, that you feel like you can share, that you don't share about your symptoms again and say, and just like hope they hear it. You say like, so I've shared this the last 3, 6, 8 times I've been here, and I don't see you collaborating with me to address these. And I really want your help. And maybe it's referring me to someone else. Maybe, you aren't the specific provider, but these things are affecting my life in a negative way. And they're because of cancer, and you're my cancer doctor. So what do we do here?
Mhm. That's good thing. That's a good way to reframe it. Thank you.
And good luck. I mean, it's, just even imagining you having that conversation, I just got like a flutter in my stomach and like my face is hot. And so I just like, don't underestimate, like it's an important thing, but a hard thing.
Jill, thank you for bringing that up. I have the same issues with my oncologist. My numbers are great, my scans are great. And that's all she looks at. And when I say that I'm having some issues, she just like kind of poo-poos it. And maybe it's not a common side effect that they're seeing, or maybe because I'm a little over 2 years into my diagnosis, and she's more concerned with those who are just starting out that do have a lot more issues. I kind of get the same feeling if I say, oh, I'm feeling this way or that way, or, like I'm having a cough that's been going on and on and on. And she's like, oh, well, if you're not spitting up blood or mucus or anything, then I'm not worried about it. Well, but maybe it is something that it's an indication of something else. And every time I go and I bring it up, I kind of get the same kind of responses that you're getting from your oncologist. So Cal, thank you for pointing out some ways that we can maybe address it. And I have an appointment coming up on the 22nd, and I think I will approach it again.
Yeah. Well, and I wonder, like, when a doctor says, well, I'm not worried about it. Okay, but I've told you about it because I'm worried about it. So, and if by worried about it, what you're telling me is you don't think it's like evidence of advancing cancer or like a dangerous complication, that's fine. But I need you to care about it. What I'm telling you is I'm spending my day in the toilet, or I can't feel my feet. Like, just imagine for a minute what your life would be like, my dear doctor, if you were living with this thing, and just show me that it matters to you, that this is my daily experience.
Cal, I saw Patricia had her hand up. Patricia, did you still want to comment? I saw you're in the chat as well about palliative care.
Yeah, sure. I think a lot of times, because I had a similar experience, although my oncologist is great, but I think that sometimes they're not equipped to handle all of the things that we have to bring in. And so they do just not at some point, they're looking at cancer progression. And they do care about some of the side effects, but there are things like I had some peripheral neuropathy that was really affecting my ability to feel like I was balanced and that I could walk without falling, although I didn't have, like, I wasn't falling. So like I went and found, and I think I found a physical medicine rehab doctor that I went to and spoke to about it. And I think Caroline also commented that she has a palliative care doctor, and sometimes, as hard as it is, we kind of have to advocate for ourselves and say, okay, this is an issue that you're not really concerned about because it's not showing progression, but I'm having a real problem with it. Is there someone you can refer me to? Is there a palliative doctor here or in the area that I can go to that can deal with those things, that can help me, you know, get to a better place and feel better and address those issues that aren't necessarily, you know, cancer progression issues. So I don't know whether that helps or not, but.
Hey there. I hope I'm not interrupting.
Not at all.
No, go
Hi.
ahead, Julia.
This
Or-
is Julia Bodie. Hi, Faye. I heard your voice. On this topic, excuse me, my breath is kind of spotty. I'm on oxygen. But well, I can talk to this a lot about oncologists. You know, I think the net is they're not paid to know about a lot of things. I have a friend who is an oncologist, and for a different type of treatment, I mean, not cancer of the breast, but they don't take nutrition courses. They don't take palliative care courses. They're not trained in any of this. And oncologists are, by license, have to follow a certain standard of care and can't deviate. So that's why they don't want to necessarily know about all the supplements we're on. They're not going to tell you what to eat or not to eat. So at the end of the day, they really don't serve much purpose to me, except to prescribe the next dose or if there's progression. So we are, in fact, left to our own devices in a lot of ways. And had I not relied on my oncologist, my whole treatment and life would be completely different. So they're a necessary evil, but they're certainly not what I would say on my trusted inner circle care team. I hope that makes sense.
Can I say something?
Please.
I had a similar experience, and I spoke to my doctor ad nauseum about the diarrhea issues, and he just kept nodding and saying, yeah, you're right. And I agree with the previous speaker. It's not in the doctor's wheelhouse to handle that situation. And in my specific situation, I got a hold of Erin at Unite for Her, and we spoke for a bit. She changed my life, and I stayed on that medicine at least 3 more years. And it was because I was able to have a more frank conversation with her, and she was listening, and she just said certain things, and I thought, oh, well, that's true. And then I did some research and everything worked out. So I guess what I want to say is sometimes we need to expand our care team, and the nutrition services through Unite for Her or Stellar, they literally kept me on a medicine for years longer. And also palliative care, we can't say enough about how they can help us with some of these just issues. And I do kind of firmly believe the doctors are great in what they do, but this holding our hand about diarrhea is not their job. So those are my 2 cents.
I agree. I think my palliative team is outstanding. You know, that the pain management, you know, in terms of medication to prescribe pain, if not, or, you know, kind of going through supplements. So I agree. I'm not saying oncologists are bad. I'm just saying they're only going to do the bare minimum that they're required to do from an oncology standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, they are trained to treat your cancer. I mean, I think I'm a massage therapist, and there's some real bad massage therapists out there whose communication is terrible. And, you know, there's also some who are great. So I feel like the thread is, you know, what you need in terms of feeling safe and feeling supported. It sounds like some of you are getting that from your oncologists and some of you aren't. So I think, you know, it's about not settling for what you get and saying, what I need is this, and I'm going to find it. And I think, palliative care, I'm so glad that so many of you had such positive experiences with palliative care, because palliative care training is so much about listening and mirroring back what sucks and saying, I'm so sorry that that's happening. Let's start trying some things. And I feel like even, the data about like when the physician cuts off the wrong leg in an amputation surgery, the physicians who don't apologize or acknowledge get sued. The ones who come and are there when you come out of recovery and say, oh my God, I've made a terrible mistake, do not get sued, because they showed up to what was actually happening. They can't put your leg back on, right? But an oncologist can say, I'm so sorry that's happening. Here's the card for a palliative therapist. Here's a, massage therapist. Here's a registered dietitian. Like, you don't have to have the answer, but you have to want, and as a patient, I know that I want you to care enough that you give me a referral, and that you don't say, yeah, but your scans are great. I'm like, great, but I can't even read my scans because I'm in the bathroom all day. So yeah, I think what we're saying is, I want you to see me and hear me and care about what is bothering me. Even if you can't give me the answer today in this appointment, show me that it matters to you, and that when I come back next time, you're like, how's it going with the whatever it was you told me about last time? And that I'm not afraid to ask you because it might not be better. That if it's not better, I still want to know about it. And if that's the kind of provider that you want, which I think is the provider most of us want, we might have to shop around or manage up and teach those folks, hey, this is what I need. And it might be an uncomfortable moment for both of you to be like, hi, it feels like you're not listening to me. But that's gonna either go in or bounce off, and then you have to make a decision after that. But it really is about, do you want to die inside because you're not being seen? Or do you want to feel alive and supported as long as you can feel that way? And who are the cooks that you need in the kitchen to make that happen? And some of you have one or two people who meet all those needs, and some of you will have a bit of an army of people. But don't settle for, this person knows more than me, and I guess this abusive relationship I'm in with my oncologist is just the norm.
Thank you so much, Cal.
Thank you, guys.
Always thoughtful, and you have so many great analogies, as we listen to you and just look at the conversation that is spurred from the community to share what they're doing. And I love that they're expanding their team. Because we say it a lot, sometimes it's not one size fits all. There's never one magic bullet. And you're a part of our team, Cal. We appreciate you. I am so glad you come and answer the call every time we ask you to talk on some difficult situations and topics, and really appreciate your voice here tonight.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to be with you all.
You're welcome. All right, we are going to bring on our next speaker, and that is Michelle Storch. She may not be someone new to you, because she is a part of Unite for Her. She was our Unite for Her advisor in the field of yoga and meditation. She's a certified yoga therapist specializing in cancer and chronic illness. She works in numerous medical settings in Philadelphia, enjoys designing custom yoga programs, and we've had her do that for Unite for Her, that anyone can do, regardless of ability. And Michelle also teaches meditation, drawing on both the Buddhist tradition and the mindfulness-based stress reduction curriculum. So Michelle, thank you for coming out today. Thank you for leading our team here and our community in the metastatic space. And we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. So good to be here. So I was asked to talk about sleep, such a profound topic. So I'm just curious, for those who have your cameras on, how many of you are not sleeping well? Give me a little show of hands. Right. And you're free to put in the chat as well. My next question, I'm always curious to know about, how many of you struggle more with falling asleep or finding yourself awake in the middle of the night and not getting back to sleep? So how many of you are in the first category? Getting to sleep at night is more of the challenge. You can wave your hand at me. Or, yeah, thank you. Or you find yourself awake in the middle of the night and can't get back to sleep. Yeah, lots in that category. Yeah, right. So I'm going to talk about both things. I'm actually just launched my sleep series this past Tuesday. It's a 4-part sleep series. I love sleep. I love talking about sleep. I mostly sleep well, but I definitely have periods where I struggle, right? Like, oh, here I am awake in the middle of the night, or oh, I can't get to sleep. So I've definitely have wrestled with this, as many people do. And really, I came to this work when I started my yoga therapy work over 10 years ago. Started working with cancer patients, and I saw and I heard how many cancer patients are struggling with their sleep. And I was shocked, really. I had no idea. Firstly, just that but especially folks on a cancer journey struggling with sleep. So I started doing more research, learning more and more and more. And so my current iteration of teachings on sleep is a 4-part series. So today I'm going to give you the condensed version, the zippy version, and I'm going to change my screen now, and you're going to see some slides. Actually, I have to do it over here first. My screen will change. And there. Okay. And so the first thing I want to drive home is this idea about repetition. Repetition, because whatever it is you try, you're probably going to need to try it multiple times. What we're really talking about is a reprogramming of your mind-body connection. And I'll say more about that as we move along, but really it's a kind of rewiring in the mind-body connection. So when I think about sleep and supporting people in their sleep, I think of it in 3 categories. What are you doing in the 1 hour before bed? What do you do in bed with your eyes closed, lights out? What are you doing to help yourself shift into sleep? And then what do you do during the day to help yourself be more primed for good sleep? So let's talk about pre-bed, so the hour before sleep. What I like to share is this tuning in the hour before bed. So first of all, let's say we're going to target our lights out time, right? Your target bedtime. That's the lights out time. Looking at the hour or so, could be 90 minutes. What is your nervous system and your body telling you? Are you really awake, super awake, or are you in the sleepy zone? And then if you are in that sleepy, winding down zone, you have to start paying close attention to what might interrupt that, what might stimulate you, what gets you awake. So in essence, you're protecting this hour before bed. Protect it. It's not the time to have that stimulating conversation with your partner, right? Your spouse. It's you want to stay in the quiet, calm, peaceful place. I'm using this term, parasympathetic. Parasympathetic means the opposite of the stress response, the opposite of fight or flight, or our chronic stress is at one end, sympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic is the other end, calm, relaxed. Sometimes we call this the rest and digest part of the autonomic nervous system. So any given evening, you want to look for your sleep gate. And that's the first signal that you get that you're sleepy, you're tired. The first signal. From that point, you have 90 minutes to get yourself into bed, lights out. If you do not make it in that 90 minutes, you will have a resurgence of energy, you'll be awake again. It's that second wind phenomenon. So your sleep gate is your first signal. It says, oh, I'm sleepy. I'm feeling the need to get myself ready for bed. You have 90 minutes to do that. Many of you have probably heard of sleep hygiene, and you've probably tried many of the things here on this list. You've probably tried many others. So these are probably not new to you if you struggle with sleep, but I must do my due diligence and include all these possible tips and tricks for helping you shift into that parasympathetic zone. So you probably know no electronics. That means stepping away from the phone, the computer, the tablet, even turning away from television with enough time to downshift, right? So not only is the blue light from your device going to stimulate you, but also just the content of what you're doing, reading, watching is going to stimulate you. You want to dim the lights. And I at first thought this was silliness, but actually I found that it really works for me quite well. So this triggers your melatonin to have dimmer lights. Taking a hot shower or bath is a technique I've used for years. I love taking that hot shower. It's a dividing moment, right? It's a closing off of the day. My day is done. I shower. I am now ready for sleep. It's a clear signal to the body that I'm ready for sleep. Meditation, we're going to talk about this in a moment. This is really the heart of what I think works well. And I'll get a little clearer about this in just a moment. I'm really talking about a concentration practice. So if you see this word meditate and you go, oh no, I can't meditate. Let's rethink it. I'm going to offer you a concentration practice, and hopefully it will make a little more sense about how you're being with this busy mind that's often keeping us awake. Belly breathing, I'll also take a moment and talk about that and guide you through some belly breathing. Belly breathing is especially good because it just directly shifts you into parasympathetic. Restorative yoga, on the Unite for Her videos page, I have a few videos there with some restorative yoga poses. You might want to take a look at those. Good old-fashioned book reading in bed, not with a big super bright light, but just the right amount of light for that reading. And then no stimulating conversations, as I just mentioned. We're going to do a little bit of, these are the three that I feel like are especially helpful for that shift into parasympathetic. So let's take a moment and do some belly breathing. Before I even do that, does anyone have a question at this point, right? Having just looked at pre-bed stuff. Anyone have a question, a thought, a comment? I want to keep it as interactive as possible. Okay, so let's do a little belly breathing. So getting comfortable, and you might like to close your eyes, but you're certainly welcome to keep your eyes open if you like. And tune into your breath. Notice how your breath is flowing. And start to pay close attention to your inhalations. Notice what's moving, what's expanding as you inhale. It might be the rib cage, it might be the lower ribs, it might be the belly, and there's no right or wrong. Look for the lowest sensation, the lowest expansion. Gently encourage that place to get a little more expansive. And perhaps to drop down a little lower toward your pelvis. Each inhalation, trying to expand outward and downward. And then on your exhalations, see if you can just elongate your exhalations. Just let those exhalations be as long as they want to be without straining, not forcing. Let them have all the time that they want. Each inhalation is dropping lower and lower in the torso, or at least you're suggesting that. Just quietly breathing here, just for another 30 seconds. Dropping the breath down, breathing low and slow. See if you notice any shift in the body, any sense of feeling calmer, quieter, more relaxed. Go ahead and slowly open your eyes. So how many of you felt some sort of shift, a little change, maybe a little bit calmer, more relaxed? You're welcome to use your emojis, a little thumbs up. Great,
I
thank
have.
you.
I have.
Great, 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 great. Any questions or thoughts about that? So yeah, great. Lots of thumbs up. Fabulous. So you can use that belly breathing at any time of the day as a way to get grounded, calm down a little bit, to deal with any sort of stress that might be arising. You can use that in bed, right? As you're settling in, needing to calm down and quiet down. Did you notice that there was less thinking, a little less busy mind? Because you're focused on how the breath is moving, right? And so that takes me now into the next important piece, which is, what is the mind doing, right? How many of you are struggling with that busy mind, right? Busy mind, and you don't quite know how to turn it off, right? That is a big and important skill to learn. So we're going to talk about a concentration practice. So this is my favorite technique for getting to sleep. Concentration practices are a subcategory, you could say, of meditation, right? They help us to get focused in the present moment and just help us stay here. In this technique, you're going to let your breath just do its natural thing. So you're not manipulating the breath on this one. Let the breath do whatever it does. But your mind has the task of counting breath cycles. So a breath cycle is an inhale and an exhale. So we're going to count these cycles, and there's many variations on counting these. So here's my favorite variation. So here we are, we're tuning into the breath, and we feel the inhales and the exhales. As we begin the practice, the first inhale, we silently say the word 1. On that exhale, we say 2. On the next inhale, we'll say 3. That exhale is 4. The next inhale is 5, and that exhale is 6, and we keep going up to 10, right? So each segment of the breath has a number. We're just silently saying this in our minds, right? Then you can count backwards from 10 to 1. You can repeat the number 10 if you like. So you're inhaling on 10, exhale 9, inhale 8, exhale 7, inhale 6, exhale 5, onward down to 1. And then you just keep going, keep looping up to 10 and backwards 10 to 1. Right? So we're going to practice that now, and then we'll check in and I'll add more. I'll say some more things about it. Okay, so getting comfortable once again, just closing your eyes and feeling the natural rhythm of your breath. Not changing the breath, just feel what's happening there. Begin the counting. I will set a timer for 2 minutes, starting now.
Yes. It's right there. You're gonna get it.
If your mind wanders off into thinking, it's perfectly normal. Just come back to the breath and the counting. Let go of the counting and slowly, gently open your eyes. So again, either a show of hands or a little emoji, if that was helpful for you. Did you feel like you got a little calmer, quieter, a little steadier in the mind? Great, thank you. Lots of thumbs up there, great. Good, now here's the thing. Sooner or later, your mind is going to wander off into some thinking, and that is so normal. Here's the thing, you're going to bring it back every time you wander. And some nights that will happen quite a bit. You know, if your life has something really hot, you got a hot topic going on in your life, there's going to be more of that, right? So you can see that in the mind. And other nights, there'll be much less of that wandering. But you just keep coming back and coming back and coming back over and over and over again. And what you're doing here is training your mind to stay in the present moment, to actually feel the body resting, feel the breath, the flow of the breath, right? So our minds are not accustomed to being harnessed in this way, right? We're used to letting the mind really wander off and do what it likes to do. That wandering is really a problem-solving mechanism, which is really fine for us. We kind of need some of that, but you probably know that that problem-solving stuff goes on overdrive and it doesn't know how to turn off, right? So this practice is helping us to turn off that busy mind, right? Are there any questions about that concentration practice, breath counting? Okay. All right. I'm going to change my screen again and continue on. Maybe I will. I think I have to go tell this to do this. There we are. Okay. So, as I was saying, meditation, you're thinking of it as a concentration practice. So you're developing the concentration muscle. You could think of it as a muscle. And again, repetition, 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 and not even just in one session or one night of drifting to sleep, but also progressive nights, night after night after night, that you're practicing this in order to rewire your brain. Now, in bed, this is the same technique that I would recommend that you're using for bed, but here are some others. These are also ways of coming into the body, right? Turning away from the busy mind and bringing your attention into the body. So we're going to do a body scan and perhaps a little visualization. In the body scan, I'm going to ask you to feel these different places in the body. Your mind might wander off into a little thinking. It might comment or analyze something. But if, to the best of your ability, recognize that you're in a thinking moment, and then just come back to feeling these places in the body. And then when I offer visualization, we try to use all of our senses to create this image, right? And here again, we're connecting to the body. So the body registers sensory information. Okay. So once again, we'll do this body scan meditation. You want to get comfortable in your chair and close your eyes. And just feel your connection to the chair. Can your body soften a little bit more into the chair? Can any excess tension that you're feeling just drain down through the chair, drain down into the floor and into the earth? Can you let it go? And take your awareness now to your feet. Just notice what you're sensing through your feet, maybe the texture of your socks. See if you can feel your toes. And can you feel them without wiggling them? Just feel the feet and the toes from the inside. Feel the bottoms of your feet, tops of your feet, ankles and heels. Just feeling your feet. Moving up now into the lower legs, feeling the calves and shins. Maybe you're aware of the texture of your pants, or maybe the air against your skin. And then feeling your knees, aware of kneecaps and behind your knees. Moving to the upper legs, your thighs, feeling the front side and the back side. And sensing your hips. Feel the right hip and the left hip. And now feel your hips, legs, and feet all together. Your hips, legs, and feet. Now moving to the belly. Notice what you sense in your belly. Might be hunger or digestion happening, or maybe some other sensation, or maybe nothing much at all. Remember to notice the difference between thinking and feeling. Move your awareness now to the rib cage, feeling the air flow through your lungs, even if it's subtle. And see if you can get a good sense of the bones and muscles of your rib cage. You might be aware of clothing or even your heartbeat. And move your awareness to your back, feeling your low back and middle back and upper back. And see if you can soften your whole back. And feeling shoulders and shoulder blades. And your upper arms and elbows, forearms, wrists. And feel your palms, thumbs, first fingers, second fingers, third fingers, fourth fingers. Just feel your hands. Feel your hands, arms, and shoulders all together. Hands, arms, and shoulders. And come to the neck and throat. Soften your throat. Feel your whole neck. And then move to the jaw. Relax the joints of your jaw. Feel your chin, your lips. Go inside the mouth, feeling your tongue, teeth, and gums. Feel the roof of your mouth and under your tongue, inner cheeks. Feel your whole mouth. Moving up to the nose, feel the air flowing in and out. And feel your eyes. Soften the little muscles around your eyes. And see if the eyes can sink into their sockets. Feel your forehead, let it relax. Soften your temples. And feel your ears. And the back of your head. Feel the top of your head. Feel your head, neck, and throat all together. Your head, neck, and throat. And feel now your whole body. Feel your whole body. Just resting and breathing, sensing your whole body. Imagine now that you find yourself sitting on a beautiful beach, on the perfect beach day, gazing out into the water, which is a beautiful shade of blue, like a sapphire. The sun is warm, but not too hot. On this magical beach, you will never get sunburned. A gentle breeze caresses your skin. You smell salt in the air. You feel the sand squish between your toes. You hear a seagull now and then. Just watching the waves rolling in and rolling out. Nothing more to do. Just being, watching the waves rolling in and rolling out. Beginning to transition back now. Let that image dissolve. Take a big breath. And then slowly and gently open your eyes. Once again, little emojis or show of hands, or even unmute yourself and ask a question, comment. Beautiful, great. Thumbs up, fabulous. Great. So again, the main idea here is that we're shifting away from busy mind, from just random thinking. We're shifting, we're intentionally bringing our awareness to the body. And even with that visualization, because we're working with the five senses, we're still connecting to the body, right? So that little phrase that I used, thinking versus feeling, that's kind of the main heart of the idea. Shifting out of busy mind, directing your awareness to the body, right? Working with the body to downshift into this quieter, calmer, more relaxed zone. Looks like I maybe have some folks sleeping. Might have lost someone into the nap land. That's a good sign that something worked. Good. So
Great
I'm
sign.
gonna I'll quickly zip through the rest of my slides. Oops, I have to do this little button here first. So again, thinking versus feeling, really tuning into the body. Tips during the night, you find yourself awake. Don't turn on those big lights. Use night lights. Again, big bright lights are going to wake you up. You want to keep things as dim as possible. So put a night light in the bathroom so you don't have to turn on the light. If you find yourself awake, avoid frustration. Use these tools, use some tricks. But when you find yourself getting frustrated that you're not falling asleep, that's going to stimulate you. So there's a great neurobiologist, Andrew Huberman, who loves to talk about sleep. And he says, you do not have a sleep problem. Your body knows how to fall asleep, right? So take away that layer of frustration as much as you can and use your tools, feel your body, rest here in a meditative state, the best of your ability. Even if you're not falling asleep, doing some of these tools and practices is still having a beneficial effect, right? So use some techniques here. During the day, you want to downshift the baseline of your nervous system. If you find that you tend to be high energy, or maybe life just has you in a particular chapter of higher anxiety or higher energy, you want to do some things during the day to help you have a calmer attitude. So that could be some of that restorative yoga, could be meditation. It could just be a little time out to breathe. So many different things you can do to take a time out. Maybe that's the key phrase, a time out, to intentionally calm your nervous system. That will have a lasting effect if you can do it regularly. Definitely want to get some exercise. That is the best thing that you can do for sleep, right? It's the best thing that's going to trigger you to feel like the body has shaken off any excess energy and it's ready for a rest. I've talked a lot about meditation. Get exposed to sunlight, especially in the morning when you first wake up. Just step outside and take in the light. You don't have to look at the sun. Please do not look at the sun. This triggers your circadian rhythms. So it's going to trigger your serotonin and your wakeful circadian rhythms, which is then related to your sleepiness, the sleepy aspect of your circadian rhythms. So they go together. Try to get exposed to sunlight, especially in the morning. Complete the stress response. I'm going to quickly zip through some of that in the next slide. And then non-sleep deep rest. Again, this comes out of the work of Andrew Huberman. In essence, it's practices like the restorative yoga and also yoga nidra. Yoga nidra is a fancy guided meditation that incorporates the body scan, visualization, breath awareness. It has a particular structure, but in essence, it's a fancy guided meditation. The stress response has an end to it, right? We want to learn how to complete the stress response, right? Even though you might be triggered with a particular stimuli that creates stress, the stimuli might be done, it might be resolved, you might be over it, but the stress hormones are still in your blood system. Stress hormones are still there, so we need to do things to complete the cycle. The best thing you could do is, again, that physical activity. Can you go for a walk? Can you dance it out in your kitchen? Can you shake it off? You need to do some kind of movement for a little bit to help you shift those stress hormones out of the bloodstream. Breathing, especially those long exhales like we did in the belly breathing, that will definitely shift you into parasympathetic, and it's a signal that you're safe. Connection to people. So call that girlfriend or talk to your spouse or any friendly person that's in your world. That connection helps you to feel safe. Laughter, like a real belly laugh, watch the cat videos that create some laughter, and that's signaling endorphins. So what we're talking about here is some happy hormones. We're trying to get happy hormones to be more prominent in the body than the stress hormones, right? So laughter is triggering endorphins. Affection is triggering oxytocin. So that could be a good solid hug for at least 20 seconds. It could be cuddle time with your pet, quality time with the cat, the dog. That's oxytocin. A big cry, especially one that just goes all the way to the end, to its completion. Very, cathartic and cleansing. You want to, when it comes to its end, you want to then drop it, try not to feed that, and just move on to the rest of your day. Creative expression, anything creative gives you a context for these bigger emotions, helping you to process what might be going on. This all comes from Burnout by the or stress response.
Michelle, we did have a great question from Laurie in the chat that
Great.
asked about sunlight exposure. Does a person have to go outside to be exposed to sunlight, or can it be done just through the windows, especially during the winter?
Huberman says it's better if you can go outside. It's a little more effective. It's about photons hitting the eyes, but to a lesser degree, it is effective through the window. Yep.
I have a quick question, Michelle.
Yeah.
As I'm trying to get to sleep or relax, all of a sudden I'll find myself drifting towards sleep, but then boom, just like rapid fire, the hot flashes surge, just keep surging one after another. And there's nothing I can take for it because of the estrogen positive, can't take
Right.
estrogen. So what
Mhm.
can you recommend as, because it'll jolt. It's like a jolt right,
Mhm.
right out of sleep. It catapults you right back into full mode
Right.
awake.
Right.
So
Okay.
what do you
Yeah.
recommend?
So, well, I recommend that first of all, there's not much you can do. That it has happened and it is here, right? So you're gonna throw the covers off and you're gonna breathe with it. But what I will say is to watch out for how the mind will get frustrated with it or disappointed, right? So that's the extra layer that sometimes we add on to the experience. So can that layer, can we minimize that layer, the frustration, the disappointment that it's here? And see if your breathing can help and by help, I mean, can the breathing help you to simply calm down and be with what's happening right now? I don't have a trick to make a hot flash go away. If I did, I'd be, the richest person in the world. But, letting yourself just be with it without adding that extra layer of frustration and disappointment, right? So again, it's kind of working with the mind and emotions, to be with the body, to be with what's happening in this moment. I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you. New perspective on it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Someone has something in the chat. When that happens, getting up and walking from one end of the house to the other until my body expels extra energy. Yeah, showing my mind and body the grace of what's going on. Very lovely, Heidi. Thank you. Any other thoughts or questions? Right. So for those who find yourself awake in the middle of the night, it might be helpful to know about segmented sleep. That some sleep researchers have theorized that before the Industrial Revolution with electric lights, that we used to have a first sleep that was shortly after nightfall, and we'd have our first sleep, and then we'd be naturally awake for some time in the middle of the night, and then we'd have a second sleep until our waking time in the morning. So it might be helpful just to know that if you find yourself awake in the middle of the night, that's actually probably a natural sleep cycle phenomenon. And it doesn't happen for everybody, but again, if you're finding yourself frustrated and disappointed, that's only going to add stimuli, right? And so perhaps knowing that, oh, this is natural, this happens, might be helpful in just using your tools, your breathing or your concentration or your visualization to calm back down, drift back into sleep. Okay. All right. Well, I hope you all sleep very well. I'll put my information in the chat. You're welcome to reach out to me, ask me questions. There it is. There.
Great. Thank you so much, Michelle. That was wonderful.
Great.
And I did want to add too, Erin and I just did a speaker series as well. If you guys want to go to our library, we talked about that a little bit, about how all these resources. I love that the community was talking about the resources that we have that expands their their team, whether it's nutritionists or counselors or yoga professionals.
Yep.
But here we have another speaker series, if you go right on there, all about better sleep. So really some good tips from some doctors and professionals approaching it so many different ways. Today we approached it through nutrition and through yoga and meditation. And then there's other professionals just talking about the psychology of it and making sure that the bedroom is for one thing. Sleep and sex, I think, were the two things that they said. Don't do anything else in bed. Nothing else. Nothing else in bed. Don't read in bed. Don't, if you're awake, get up and go to another place and sit until you're ready to come back. So I learned quite a bit there. Sometimes we think it's one magic bullet, right, Michelle? And it's just not, it's
Yeah.
not one size, fits all. And you have to think
Right.
about a couple different ways to explore it.
I'm glad you reminded me of that because I did watch that. And I just want to make the connection to what she said about cognitive behavioral therapy. She was saying that that seems to be the most effective tool for sleep, if I recall that session correctly. And I just want to make the connection to what I'm saying about you're working with your mind, right? What
Yeah.
I'm saying about seeing your thoughts and seeing how the mind is working and using this shift. A lot of tools I gave were a shift from this random thinking to the body, right, to the present moment. And so that's, at its essence, part of cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm not a therapist, so I can't say too much more, but at its essence, what we were talking about is working with the mind, and really it's a rewiring of the whole mind body complex. So what we're saying about the habits of like what not to do in bed and what you do in bed is all part of that wiring too. All of these habits that you have are ingrained in your nervous system, right? So it's this complex conversation that is going on between the mind and the body and the nervous system. So taking a closer look at that and playing with your practices and habits. So yeah.
Thank you,
I could go
Michelle.
on and on about sleep.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much.
You got it. All right. Well, we have our last presenter before we get back to Erin in the kitchen. And we have the honor of welcoming Kevin Hubbard. And he has just joined us. And Erin, if you could spotlight him for me, that would be wonderful. Kevin is a licensed professional counselor in both Pennsylvania and New Jersey. And he attended Temple University for both his bachelor's degree and psychology. As well as his master's degree in counseling psychology, Kevin has made it his career to work in communities of color that suffer many injustices, including but not limited to access to quality mental and behavioral health care. Kevin's philosophy, which I love, is to care that therapy is a process that promotes change. People who struggle with life stressors are not alone in this battle. He believes that there is no issue too great for an individual to overcome if they are willing to put forth the effort and the energy that it takes to confront issues head on. And he believes that as a mental health professional, he must first meet individuals where they are in life in order to understand the extent of their issue and circumstance. So Kevin, thank you for joining us. I know you're going to walk us through a wonderful presentation. I'm loving everything I'm seeing about bringing the outdoors, into your heart, into your mind. So I'm going to let you take it from here.
Indeed. Thank you, Sue. And thank you for the intro. I am once again just happy to be here to just share some information about myself, about what I do and the therapies that I offer, as well as the benefits of using said therapy. So I'm going to jump right in here with my presentation. So Mind Over Matter is the name of my company. And so I think we did the intro, so I think we can go ahead and skip this slide here. But I want to start off with this quote. I kind of was looking around and I found this quote, and the quote was, "I go to nature to be soothed and healed and to have my senses put in order." And so this quote, it comes from John Burroughs. I don't know if you've ever heard of the John Burroughs Sanctuary in New York, but it spoke to me because when we think about nature, we think about, oh, that's like when you go into a forest or, going outside or things like that. But we really have to sometimes really sit still and examine the relationship that we have with nature. We are so, on a societal level, I want to say we're like very far gone when it comes to our connection to nature. But the good part is all is not lost, because we can reconnect to nature. And the benefits of just being outside, I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But when we think about just our day-to-day, our daily routines, we're inside of structures, we're inside of buildings, we're under fluorescent lights, we're, on phones, we're hunched over, we're on social media, we're doing things that definitely, let's say 150 years ago, were just not natural. So when we think about our bodies and nature, there is this interconnected relationship that we have with it. And again, it's not lost on us. We just have to find or almost rediscover what that relationship looks like and what it can look like today. So I'm going to get into this in a little bit more detail in the form of talking a little bit more about what ecotherapy is. Like when I do my intro, a lot of people, they hear ecotherapy and they're like, "You're an ecotherapist. What in the world is that?" But just to give you just a broad brush definition, it's a variety of practices that integrate the healing power of nature with traditional psychotherapy and counseling. So yes, it is the act of doing therapy sessions outdoors, but there's so much more to it than simply doing a session outside, right? Here's a little bit more detail about how it looks, some of the benefits, and also what it's effective for. So when we think about how it looks, yes, it's a therapy session sitting on grass. Oftentimes I'll find a park bench with my client. They could be sitting on a tree log. It could be taking a nature hike, very light hiking, of course. Oftentimes using metaphor to discuss the issues or the concerns, whether we're near, let's say, a stream or a body of water or a tree or a cave. It could be a meditation hike, more so searching for an area to have kind of some of that quiet, peaceful reflection. Oftentimes when I'm out in the wilderness or out in the woods, so to speak, it's always interesting because I don't try to tell clients ever, and this is whether I'm in the outdoors, whether I'm virtual or whether I'm in person, I tried to tell them, I'm not going to tell you how to feel, what to think, or how to behave. I just want you to be here. And when I say that, I'm saying that as almost like a rule to myself because I don't have an answer as to how to fix a problem or to solve an issue that person might be going through. I believe that the person has the answer, but sometimes we can't sit still long enough to really reflect on that. So oftentimes when we do the meditation hikes, it's almost self-guided. I'm almost walking practically behind the person, following them and taking their lead to see what's the best spot to do our meditation. So also this comes in the form of walk and talks. Usually this is about a 1-hour walk on a specific trail that I use, while also having some of that traditional talk therapy when we find a good place to settle. Another form of ecotherapy that falls under the umbrella of eco-psychology is gardening. It might seem simple enough, but really I call it creating life, right? When we're outside, we're outdoors, we're getting our hands dirty, we're kind of in the dirt, kind of working. But it's such a fascinating experience that I've seen kind of play out in a bunch of different ways. In particular, when I've worked with children or teens, I often see just their faces light up. I mean, it almost feels like you're almost like getting in touch with that childlike part of you again when you're just kind of playing in dirt, right? But it is so liberating, I will say, as the ecotherapist, and I would imagine as the client receiving the ecotherapy, to just be able to experience just how nature and life are so interwoven, interconnected, and to be a witness to that through gardening. And so some of the benefits, because a lot of people ask this too, they're like, what are the actual benefits of ecotherapy? So of course, just the beauty in nature, that's first and foremost. Just being able to recognize that and really just almost look at it and like that awe, just be able to see it and witness it. It also helps to boost our mood. It improves our focus. It gets us active and moving. I heard some talk about hormones earlier, and I was thinking, yep, when we do the hikes, we get the endorphins going. Helps us to kind of cherish those simple things in life. Again, we're so, the word I'm thinking of, domesticated, right, in this world sometimes, and we just have not been able to get out into nature the ways that we used to, or the ways that we should. Because sometimes there's a simplicity in it, but there's also a complexity in it as well. But sometimes we are so pulled into so many different directions in our day-to-day routines. Again, like I was saying earlier, through social media and just all kinds of stimuli that really can just stress us out. So we have to really get back to simplicity. And I'm going to talk about that in a second when we talk about the 8 dimensions of wellness. And it enhances our self-esteem. Sometimes in nature, we see things that are just so powerful, whether it's a body of water, whether it's a tree. And we also have to recognize that we have strength in our own selves as well. It increases our confidence. It assists with emotional stability, which I'm almost not surprised at this point when I take someone outdoors and we do an exercise, and whether it's a release exercise or meditation, and the person is usually just bawling in tears. And what I'm always witnessing is that a person is just letting go of a lot of stuff all at once. And so to be able to stabilize emotion, sometimes it's like this counterbalance. It's like one side of me is very heavy, one side of me is very light, but I'm not in balance. But once we get to a place where you can kind of let some things go and kind of find that balance, then we can have a better opportunity to do ecotherapy and also do some healing, really. It helps with self-reflection. A lot of times people conflate mindfulness with meditation, with manifestation. Just to make it a little bit clearer, meditation is more about self-reflection, mindfulness is about the present moment, and then manifestation is about what you're trying to accomplish or bring forth for yourself in the future. And so a lot of times when I say we're going to go outside and do ecotherapy or do meditation, it's really about self-reflection, because there's so much metaphor in nature that we can see when we're really just paying attention, and when we're really just looking outward instead of always looking inward and being stuck in some of those internalized disorders like depression. It helps us to regulate or calm down our nervous system. I heard talk about that earlier as well. And I'm actually going to show a video in a minute about stress, more specifically chronic stress. And particularly some of the disorders or some of the diagnoses that I see ecotherapy treating the most in the most beneficial ways is anxiety, major depression, PTSD, as well as adjustment disorder or generalized stress. All right, here's the video. I'm going to cue this up 1 second. And I'm showing you this not to scare you, but it's almost like a warning, I guess you could say, just to be able to recognize how chronic stress can really do a number on our mental health. So hopefully you can get something from this. And it's only about 5 minutes long, 4 minutes.
Are you sleeping restlessly, feeling irritable or moody, forgetting little things, and feeling overwhelmed and isolated? Don't worry, we've all been there. You're probably just stressed out. Stress isn't always a bad thing. It can be handy for a burst of extra energy and focus, like when you're playing a competitive sport or have to speak in public. But when it's continuous, the kind most of us face day in and day out, it actually begins to change your brain. Chronic stress, like being overworked or having arguments at home, can affect brain size, its structure, and how it functions, right down to the level of your genes. Stress begins with something called the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, a series of interactions between endocrine glands in the brain and on the kidney, which controls your body's reaction to stress. When your brain detects a stressful situation, your HPA axis is instantly activated and releases a hormone called cortisol, which primes your body for instant action. But high levels of cortisol over long periods of time wreak havoc on your brain. For example, chronic stress increases the activity level and number of neural connections in the amygdala, your brain's fear center. And as levels of cortisol rise, electric signals in your hippocampus, the part of the brain associated with learning, memories, and stress control, deteriorate. The hippocampus also inhibits the activity of the HPA axis, so when it weakens, so does your ability to control your stress. That's not all though. Cortisol can literally cause your brain to shrink in size. Too much of it results in the loss of synaptic connections between neurons and the shrinking of your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that regulates behaviors like concentration, decision-making, judgment, and social interaction. It also leads to fewer new brain cells being made in the hippocampus. This means chronic stress might make it harder for you to learn and remember things, and also set the stage for more serious mental problems like depression and eventually Alzheimer's disease. The effects of stress may filter right down to your brain's DNA. An experiment showed that the amount of nurturing a mother rat provides its newborn baby plays a part in determining how that baby responds to stress later in life. The pups of nurturing moms turned out less sensitive to stress because their brains developed more cortisol receptors, which stick to cortisol and dampen the stress response. The pups of negligent moms had the opposite outcome, and so became more sensitive to stress throughout life. These are considered epigenetic changes, meaning that they affect which genes are expressed without directly changing the genetic code. And these changes can be reversed if the moms are swapped. But there's a surprising result. The epigenetic changes caused by one single mother rat were passed down to many generations of rats after her. In other words, the results of these actions were inheritable. It's not all bad news, though. There are many ways to reverse what cortisol does to your stressed brain. The most powerful weapons are exercise and meditation, which involves breathing deeply and being aware and focused on your surroundings. Both of these activities decrease your stress and increase the size of the hippocampus, thereby improving your memory. So don't feel defeated by the pressures of daily life. Get in control of your stress before it takes control of you.
All right. So one of the things about that video that came up a couple of times was cortisol. I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about that because cortisol is a naturally occurring hormone in the body. But the thing we have to understand about cortisol is that it can have a devastating, damaging effect on our brains. Arguably, cortisol is akin to brain damage or almost a TBI or traumatic brain injury. So when we're talking about stress, we're talking about making sure that we manage it well. This is not a spectator sport. We have to address it. Addressing this stress can come in the form of self-care. It could come in the form of stress management. But the long and the short of this is when we don't do anything about our stress, when we kind of sit there and kind of look idly by and we're kind of like stewing in our emotions and not expressing ourselves and not having any formal outlets, whether that's through therapy or psychiatry, we oftentimes will have other types of issues as a complication from stress. Some of us may have gone to our doctors and you say, oh, I got this weird symptom and I'm not sure what it's about. And they might say, oh, well, it's probably just stress. It's probably just stress, right? You probably heard that at least once going to your doctor, but no, it may not be stress. It could be more than just stress. It could be stress unaddressed to the extent that now I'm developing anxiety. I'm developing depression. I'm developing heart disease or inflammation or gastrointestinal issues. So we have to be very, very careful on what stress is linked to and also what that might look like in the grand scheme of things, right? So the 8 dimensions of wellness, just to quickly go through these, this is something that I use quite often when I do ecotherapy. It's a way of kind of helping with some accountability in the treatment space. In other words, what are we going to talk about when we get there? What are we going to talk about when we get outside? What are we going to talk about when we get to the office? This model was adopted by a woman by the name of Dr. Margaret Swarbrick. It was actually a recovery model, but it was created because people had to just get their lives back in order. Simplicity, right? Just getting back to square one and just putting our lives into a space where it just made more sense, right? So we start with emotional wellness at the top, coping effectively with life, creating satisfying relationships. We have financial wellness, which is about, current or future financial situations. Our social wellness, which is about developing connection, our sense of belonging, our support system. Our spiritual wellness, which is more about expanding our sense of purpose and meaning in life. Our occupational, which is more so about the work that we do. Some of our jobs can be stressful, right? But we want to find satisfaction and enrichment from our work. Of course, physical. We talked about this a little bit earlier with sleep, nutrition, dieting, our physical activity. Again, just making sure that we're getting those endorphins up. Our intellectual wellness, probably one of the more neglected forms of our wellness, but recognizing our creative abilities and finding ways to expand our knowledge and skills. So this is more so about like using that left side of our brain to really create and be creative, because sometimes it helps with our mood and also helps with self-help and self-improvement. When we're not in a state of bettering ourselves, sometimes we feel a little stagnant. Reading, journaling, writing, all these things can help with our intellectual wellness. And then environmental, probably, again, another neglected form of wellness, but probably my favorite, which is good health by occupying pleasant, stimulating environments that support our well-being. So I want to go a little deeper in talking about some of these. So our environmental wellness is about, or it can be about being in nature. Having houseplants, obviously, can be a way of improving our environment. I always talk about this every time I do this presentation, but a lot of people say, oh, what kind of plant is that? That plant there typically grows in the Amazon. It is called a bromeliad, and they come in all kinds of funky colors like blues, reds, oranges, yellows, purples. But it's one of the most oxygenating plants on the planet. No wonder it's found in the Amazon. But another place you can find it is Home Depot or Lowe's, $20, right? So having something like this around you, even just in doing some research about the oxygenating power of plants, 15 minutes being around plants or being outside around a tree or in grass or in nature can drastically improve our mood. When you get upset or when you get angry, the person says, take a walk, take a hike. It's not by accident, right? It's important for us to get outside. It's important for us to be in nature. Making sure that we also kind of consider our living space, right? Our working space, getting exposure to fresh air. This is all a must when it comes to our environmental wellness. Our emotional wellness, feel your feelings. When a feeling comes up, whether we're sad, whether we're feeling emotional, depressed, upset, stuck, make sure you take time to grieve. Our lives have changed so much in just the last few years, and just trying to figure out what's next, right? Well, the answer to that could be focusing on what we can control, right? Expressing how you're feeling to trusted others, whether that's your therapist, a friend, a family member. And I mentioned this earlier, but journaling is probably one of the more powerful tools that I use when doing ecotherapy. Oftentimes I'll give someone the assignment and I'll say, I want you to walk 30 paces in that direction, and I want you to find a seat, and I want you to journal about what you see. And I want you to talk about what's coming up for you emotionally. And sometimes when I do that and they come back in 10 minutes, they're again very emotional, and I'm talking them through. I'm like, okay, so what did you write? What happened? What did you witness in nature? What did you feel? It's a process. It's a process, but it's something that I hope for people to be able to do as they, develop their sense of self when they're outside and they're feeling, that this process is helping, and that this process is moving forward as far as therapy. Our intellectual wellness, like I said earlier, being creative, using our minds to be creative, with our artistic abilities. You don't have to be Picasso or anything. It's just, a way of just allowing our brains to work in different ways. Don't limit yourself. Focus on your future endeavors. Be interested in learning about yourself. I know that sometimes we get so caught up in what other people are doing. We're trying to make sure everyone else is okay with the diagnosis and checking in on people. And sometimes we just need to sit still and check in on ourselves, right? Financial wellness. We worry about money. We worry about how am I going to pay for all this, right? Which is why Unite for Her is such a blessing, right? But we try not to obsess over money, because again, it's something that can increase our stress levels. Make a plan, be disciplined about it. Identify those things in your life that you'd like to achieve financially. Yes, it may take some time, but when you're disciplined, when you have an actual plan, when you have guidance, even, it can be a less of a stressor and more of an area of wellness that we're just nurturing. Okay. So any thoughts or questions about these first 4 areas of wellness? So we have financial wellness, we have our intellectual wellness, we have emotional, and we have environmental, which is again, probably one of my favorite. But any questions about these first 4 before I go into the last 4?
Kevin, I actually saw that we had in the chat from one of our members, and I feel like it does fit into that emotional wellness part. She was sharing that it's really difficult. She's had, a loss in her life with a 26-year-old son and dealing with metastatic breast cancer. And when she goes to work, her colleagues are, it's tough for her to listen to them discuss current news related events, and they feel just so like depleting to her. And she tries her best not to allow for those negative comments to get in her mind. But she's human, and it's disturbing. And she just has to leave the office. And that's not healthy, right? Like, this is her place of work. And what advice would you give to her?
I have a whole series on work-related stress and how to manage yourself when you're at work, called My Last Good Nerve. But it's important to really recognize what's going on in the world, but to have our places of respite. And I feel like a lot of times when we're so hyper focused on news or on media, or just when our minds are just bombarded with so much information, it's not even necessarily sometimes just the news. It's just the amount of things that we have going on in our minds every single day that, again, we're not checking in. So the first thing I would recommend to this person is, are you checking in with yourself throughout the day? If you're running into things, it's almost like running, and then it's like, oh gosh, I hit this brick wall because I just heard about this terrible thing happening on the news, or I hit a brick wall because I have so many things I have to do and I don't know if I'm going to have enough time to do them today. Or just really cultivating and structuring our routine and our time more adequately. Our emotional wellness in particular gets affected when we don't do those things. So when it comes to being at work, which is another area of wellness, which I'll talk about in a second, we have to be really careful of our level of vulnerability and how we're going to deal with stress in a work environment, because a lot of places, a lot of workplaces, they don't really sometimes recognize, oh, you're stressed, oh, you need a mental health day. It's like, it's not taken as seriously. And I think that's part of the stigma with mental health a lot, is that people don't take it as seriously as like, hey, I'm having chest pain, or hey, I'm having really severe migraine today. When we're having an emotional episode or something that's happening to us, a lot of times it may not be taken as seriously, which is quite unfortunate. But we have to be able to recognize that when something's not right, we have to address it, right? So again, it's not only just stress management in the workplace or finding those ways to kind of, okay, if I do need to go outside and kind of take a breath, I need to know when I need to come back. I can't just, like you said, leave and just never come back. But I have to be able to recognize and be self-aware of those things that affect me, and recognize when it's time for me to take a break or take a step back, an intentional step back, and then re-engage with whatever those tasks or activities that I have to get done throughout my day. So
yeah. Thank you, Kevin. I'll let her know too, like, Kevin is one of our advisors. He's one of our professional counselors. He's one of our providers. So if that's of interest to you, it certainly seems like it's a category that he is very familiar with. And you have an active passport. I don't know if you have an active passport, but he's on there. So just know that. But of course, we'll have Kevin's name in the chat, and we'll have this available to you as well. Thank you, Kevin.
Absolutely. Any more questions?
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Any more questions? I can go on to the next 4, I think.
Everyone always wants to know what that plant name is, Kevin. So just so you know.
I saw it in the chat. It's called a bromeliad.
You got to make sure you have that name ready.
Yeah. I got to copy and paste it. Okay, so I'm gonna keep running through this. So social wellness, we got to this one. So staying connected, making sure to checking on family members, friends, colleagues, sending gifts to someone, and I also added this one in when I did this presentation before, but taking intentional breaks from social media or digitally detoxing. It is a process to sometimes let go of our social media and our phones and our texting and our calls and, oh, I heard my phone ding, so I need to go look at it. It's almost like we're like, conditioned, like, we have to look at it to see what's going on in the world. And we have this big, beautiful world already existing around us, and all we need to do is go outside. So to really have healthy social wellness, we really need to be mindful of some of those more toxic levels of social engagement. And again, not pointing any fingers, but we have to be mindful of toxic people sometimes. Sometimes people are just not people who feed us in that way, mentally or emotionally. And we have to recognize when enough is enough and when to separate from those people. And if we need to have those difficult conversations with those individuals to kind of like point out and say, hey, this is really hard for me. Or, when you're talking about negative things, or when you're talking about this or that, it really triggers me. So being really mindful of our social relationships is really important to our social wellness. Our spiritual wellness, again, does not matter what faith tradition you come from, but this is about connecting or reconnecting with your higher power, drawing calm from quiet reflection of our thoughts, being intentional about avoiding toxic people, as I said, but more specifically, people, places, things, and situations. Sometimes there are things in our life that are just kind of like icky, and we don't want to touch it, and it's a lot, and we don't really want to be too aggressive in addressing it. But if it's been a problem for a really long time, why not go see a therapist to talk about it? Why not have a space to vent those feelings and those emotions? Because sometimes it doesn't work if we're trying to do it with the family member or the friend. They may actually, in fact, be the issue, right? So we have to find those mediums where we can actually do that kind of work, right? A lot of people, when they do ecotherapy with me, they come back and they're like, that was like a spiritual experience. And I was like, okay. Not meant to be, but more so just meant to bring down your stress level. Okay. Occupational wellness, we got to it. So although we may enjoy our jobs, there needs to be a balance with our personal life as well. Sometimes we just need to plan a vacation or some intentional time away from work. We also need to create systems at work that help us to be more efficient, right? So this may speak to your comment earlier, Sue, which is about, can a person just kind of like leave and then come back? Well, we have to find a way for that to work, right? If that's going to happen, or we have to be efficient in how we intentionally address, employee wellness rather. Because even though we're, all here providers and we help and we support, it's also important for the provider to have support as well. So it's important to have a setup where, even if I don't know if it's a benefit to employees to always have like EAPs or employee assistance programs and things of that nature to get, free therapy or whatever the case may be. But we really just need ways to be able to check in, and it doesn't have to be anyone else's business as to how we do that. But it's important for us to do it, right? To have our method, right? As long as it's a method that is pro-social, not anti-social, meaning it's not something that causes us harm or causes us any pain or injury over time. Okay. Our physical wellness, of course, we got to start somewhere, whether we're trying to get in shape, whether we're trying to build muscle. It's always important to, I think, involve other people in your fitness journey, whether it's friends, family, colleagues. Monitor your nutrition, which I know is a big part of the Unite for Her wellness program, and taking a break from meat, if advisable, from your PCP or oncologist. When I talk about ecotherapy and the earth, this earth is very giving, right? Our planet is very giving, and it is a resource to all of us. But is there a possibility that things can run out, right? So when we have to be mindful of how much we consume, how much we do, as far as like our eating habits and what kinds of foods that we eat. And it's no judgment. And we're not sitting here and saying, oh, you have to become vegan or vegetarian. What we're just saying is just to recognize what we're doing to our planet, right? When we eat certain kinds of foods, or when we consume certain kinds of foods, but just being very mindful of also how it has an effect on our bodies over time as well. So be intentional about everything that you put into your body, from this point forward. Just be very, very intentional. Our physical wellness is the most obvious sign that there's something wrong or that there's something awry. But again, when we make good decisions, again, going back to mental health, we can have a better outcome, right? So just be intentional, be mindful of what you're doing and how you're feeding your body and nurturing your body. All right. Any questions on the social, spiritual, occupational, physical wellness dimensions? Any thoughts here? All right. Going once, going twice. Okay. All right. So I'm going to just mention this. Some of you may have gotten some seeds. You may have gotten a plant in the mail, or pot, I should say, and some seeds. I think it was probably for the first 50 people who registered for this event. And this kit was included in a way to support folks with getting outside, using your hands, staying active, and engaging in ecotherapy in the form of some horticultural therapy, which is part of ecotherapy. So results may vary when planting, but I'm going to take it back to 6th grade. When we think about, planting, right, there's 5 things we need. Okay. We need water. We need fresh water, fresh, clean water. We need light. Okay. Whether that's sun, whether that's a grow lamp. Sometimes you can get grow lamps as well, pretty cheap on places like Amazon and things of that nature. We need space. And if you're going to grow a whole bunch of stuff, you're going to need lots of space. Okay. Whether you're doing tomatoes or greens or basil, some of the things that I try to do in the summertime. Definitely some fresh air. And last but not least, sometimes you're going to need some nutrients by way of compost or manure. And this comes in the form of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Sometimes you can buy this as a additive if it's needed. Some plants definitely need compost and or manure. It's just the quality of that soil needs to be really good, because sometimes we think, oh, let me just stick it in the ground, put some water on it, it'll grow. Sometimes it's not the quality of the soil that it's being grown in isn't great, right? Right. So we got to be careful, right? We got to be mindful of like how we're planting it and how deep we're putting those seeds, and making sure that we don't get into situations where we just feel a whole lot of disappointment when we're trying to plant something. So hopefully you got that, and this is just one extra way for you yourself to be able to practice ecotherapy in your own time, because I don't know about you, but gardening can be very therapeutic. It can be time consuming, but it can be also very therapeutic when done in moderation, right? All right. And also, I want to lead you all in a mindful moment. I'm going to do that before we go. And I'm gonna kind of follow Michelle's lead. She was doing some breathing earlier, and I definitely was like, oh, I'm just enjoying this all the way. So I would like for you all to get comfortable. And this is something that I also do whenever I'm doing ecotherapy, again, going along with mindfulness. If you're already comfortable in your chair or in your seat, wherever you are, just follow me. I'll just kind of prompt you into these breaths. On the count of 3, we're going to take an inhale in and then an exhale. And the only thing you need to do at this point forward is just to listen to my voice. Okay. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, big breath in and exhale. Okay. Just notice your breath, regulate your breathing. If it hurts to breathe in too forcefully, kind of be gentle with yourself and breathe in kind of slow. And just notice your chest expanding, your diaphragm. We're going to do another breath on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Breath in and exhale. And just slowly let your breath kind of return to its natural rhythm. We're going to do one more breath for good measure before we go into this guided imagery exercise. The only added direction is if you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes on this last and final breath. 1, 2, 3, big breath in. And exhale slowly. So as we do this exercise, I just want you to, just for a moment, I want you to imagine yourself walking in a forest. And as you're walking in this forest, on either side of you, there are trees, there's bushes, there's woodland critters. Sun is out, temperature is nice and even. And I just want you to recognize how you feel as you're walking down this path in the forest. And as you're walking, just up in front of you, you recognize that there is a fork in the road. And as you see this fork in the road, you think to yourself, I could go left or I could go right. And for the purposes of today, we're going to start with that left path. And so we walk down this path, and just a little further in front of us in the distance, we see a clearing. And in the middle of that clearing, there's a tree stump. And on that tree stump, there is a box. And we approach that box and we reach down and we feel the wood grain texture of the box. And we open it. And we recognize immediately that the box is empty. And so we have to put some things into this box today. Just for today, just for now. And so the things that we're going to place inside of this box for today is our fear, our hurt, our pain, our frustrations, our worries, and our traumas. Just for today, we're going to put those things into this box. And we're going to shut that box. We're going to back away. We're going to turn away. And we're going to walk back to the path where we came from. And so when we get back to the fork in the road, there's only one direction left to go. And so this time we go off to the right. And as we're walking down this path, some time has gone by. Sun is starting to set. Temperature is a little bit cooler than when we started. The wind is picking up. You can hear the leaves blowing. And so as we're walking down this path, we recognize again that there's another box on a tree stump. It's kind of off to our right, kind of obscure. But when we see it, we recognize that this box is made of metal. It's made of a different kind of material. And so we reach down and we touch the cool, cold texture of this box. And we open it. And inside of this box, there is every good thing we could ever imagine. Inside of this box, there's happiness, there's joy, there's wisdom, there's comfort, there's strength, and there's peace. And we gather these things up into our chest, into our heart, and we continue down the path. And we realize and we recognize that the path in front of us may be long and at times arduous. But we also recognize that in order to finish going through this path, getting to the end, we have to put one foot in front of the other. So I encourage you today to take those things with you and to keep walking. Keep walking. One, two, three. Take a breath in and exhale. Slow. Regulate your breathing. Let your natural rhythm return. And if at this point, you want to come back to center, come back to reality, you can open your eyes. And so that's just a sampling of mindfulness and kind of some of the things that we do outside in nature. I know that Sue mentioned, if you want to get in touch, here's my information. I'm going to put that into the chat. And I guess also, I don't know if you've all heard about some ecotherapy events. I don't know if I could do some plugs here, Sue, but if we got time.
Yeah, go ahead. We have a
Okay.
national audience here, so just know,
All
if
right.
you're located in our area,
Yeah.
just to keep that in mind. They might
Okay.
not be coming to you from Oklahoma.
Understood. So I'm going to do a quick plug here. I definitely try to do ecotherapy as often as I can in groups because it's just funner that way. So this is one event that I'm coming up. I'm partnering with another ecotherapist in training. And I am partnering with this company, Relinquish and Transcend. And just as a benefit to you all, if you are in the Philadelphia area or the Norristown area, we'll be putting on a ecotherapy series. And it's 6 groups, about 9 hours in total, because each group is about an hour and a half. And for all 6 groups is one passport square for the entire series. And here's some dates. If you want to get these dates in detail, I'm not going to keep this up long, but just email me your name, your phone number, and if you want to register, that's the way you register. You just reach out to me directly to my email address. And I've already put that into the chat. So if you're interested, again, just reach out. I'm looking forward to this event. I already have probably about 10 Unite for Her people already signed up.
So good.
Which is great.
Yay.
So
Of course you do.
Yeah. So we want to keep them coming, keep people coming.
It's good, Kevin.
Yeah.
If you
So
want to put that flyer in the chat, please feel free to.
I'll do that as well. Thank you so much, Sue. And thank you,
Oh,
everyone.
you got it. Yeah, our pleasure. All right, we are going to switch over and finish our evening, which is always our afternoon, which is always one of my favorite places to be, and that is in the kitchen with Erin. So Erin, it looks like you are front and center, ready to go. Kitchen looks good. What are you making for us?
I am making a nighttime nosh quesadilla.
Oh.
So yeah, so it's really simple, and this is a recipe, but really it's a suggestion. So I love this because it incorporates a lot of the foods we talked about earlier. It's very quick to throw together. It's light, so it's not going to weigh you down, and quantities are just a suggestion. So I do have the recipe, which we can pop in the chat. We'll put it on our blog as well. Melissa will share it with everyone afterwards. But this is really quick. So we'll wrap up. I barely made it out of my forest walk with Kevin, so I'm pretty I'm pretty happy to be here because I was so relaxed listening to him prior. So let's make our quesadilla really easy. Like I said, ingredients are suggestions, which is why I love this recipe, but we're going to highlight some of those supportive sleep foods. So all you need is a saute pan. So I have a saute pan here, and we're going to start by cooking some of our veggies. So I'm adding a little bit of olive oil to this, and we'll let this get hot. First thing I'm going to start doing is chopping up some mushrooms. So we talked about mushrooms being one of those sleep supportive foods. It's one of the few foods that are naturally a source of vitamin D. So you can choose any particular type of mushroom. If you like the white button mushrooms, the baby bella or cremini, you can do portobello. I've got some pre-sliced shiitake I picked up at my local market. So I'm going to take just a handful of these because, as I mentioned, I'm making a personal serving. Quantities are just a suggestion. And I'm going to give these a little bit more of a rough chop. So while I do that, and once they're chopped, I'll throw them in my pan to start sauteing. But while I'm chopping these up, one thing I did do ahead of time is I roasted some sweet potatoes, and that's what you see here. So I took 2 sweet potatoes, I cut them up into smaller pieces. You'll see little pieces there. Think bite-size amounts, right? If it's going in a tortilla or a wrap, we don't want pieces that are really large that it's going to be a little bit awkward to chew. So I went a little bit smaller. And I roasted them in the oven, 400 degrees. I dressed them with a little bit of olive oil and a dried seasoning blend that I like to use when I roast my veggies. You could just use salt and pepper. If you are watching your sodium intake or being mindful of fluid retention and you're watching your sodium, you can just use any sort of dried herbs. Black pepper would be fine. So I gave them a roast. If you have leftovers from dinner last night, then use those too. So if you made roasted potatoes or something that you roasted up, feel free to reheat those and use those. So I love this for leftovers. Okay, rough chop to my mushrooms. These will go in the pan. And we're just going to saute them until they're tender. So that won't take much time. I'm adding a little bit of freshly ground black pepper and a little bit of salt. My heat of my pan is on medium. If you feel like your pan is a little hot, feel free to turn it down. I'm going to cut up just a little bit more mushrooms here. These cook up pretty quick, so it's not going to take long, which is another reason why I love this recipe, because it's literally something that you can throw together when you come home at the end of your day. Oftentimes when we're tired, we've come home from appointments, we've come home from, things kids have going on after school or family members, or we're traveling, or we had a late day at the office and we're just staring at our refrigerator like, what can I make? This is a really great option. So quick saute. And because I roasted my sweet potatoes earlier, they're room temperature and I want to warm them up a little bit. So I'm going to throw some of these in the pan as well, just to heat through. And then while I do that, I'm going to grab my spinach, because remember, good source of iron, supportive vegetable for sleep health. So you could give these a little bit of a rough chop as well. I am not going to be that difficult, because at the end of a long day, who has time for that? So we'll just throw some leaves in our pan as well. And all we're doing is letting them wilt. You could substitute this with any other sort of green. So know that if you've got some kale hanging out, if you have some dandelion greens, if you have some chard, if you have sliced cabbage, purple cabbage, green cabbage, Napa cabbage, this would be great for that as well. So really, really simple. And we know how quickly spinach cooks down and wilts. So once it gets to that texture that you want, if you like your spinach a little more wilted, if you want it a little bit less, it's absolutely your prerogative. These look great. I don't like my spinach overly wilted, so everything actually looks great. I'm going to turn it off from heat. I will show you what this looks like. And then I'm going to set it in a dish to my side. So here's what we're going for. Everything is really nicely sauteed, right? My greens aren't overly finished. So let's just get this and change. And then all we're doing is we're going to lightly toast my tortilla. In the same pan, I am using, this is a one pan kind of deal here. We're not trying to create more dishes for ourselves. Don't even worry about it. So think fiber, remember? So I love a wrap. I love a tortilla. So I'll be using a high fiber, which is supportive of good blood sugar control, which is supportive of sleep. That will go right in the pan. What we're going to do is we're going to toast that on both sides. So just let it go for a few minutes. If you want it a little less warm, just keep it in until it's warm through. If you want it a little toastier, let it hang out for a little while longer. While that's toasting, what we'll also be adding are some black beans, because remember, black beans are a good supportive food for sleep, supporting circadian rhythm, supportive of blood sugar control. So it's a great source of fiber. So many added benefits. So we'll be utilizing black beans. This is a whole can rinsed. You could use any kind of bean that you want. Lentils would be great for this as well. So once this is hot, we can flip this on either side. And then once it gets sort of toasty and warm, we'll pull this off. And I'll show you how we'll plate this. And again, you could let this go for a little longer to really get it toasty, but this is like a quick, easy dinner that you can throw together. So I'll be adding a little bit of hummus to start my quesadilla. So I'm just going to smear a little bit. You can use an original hummus. If you have a favorite flavored or roasted red pepper would be really great. I've got this out of this world caramelized onion hummus that I have been like, I can't get enough of. So, do whatever you like. And again, chickpeas, which is the main ingredient in hummus, is supportive of sleep health. And then we just start layering, right? So I've got my sauteed vegetables. This is a dish that you saw we can literally throw together in minutes. Will keep you full. Like I said, won't be really heavy in your belly. So it's not going to just kind of sit as you're making your way towards relaxing in bed. And then I'm adding a little sprinkle of black beans on top. We'll fold this over. This is like my kind of, oh, that looks so good. Cut in half. If you want to, oh, this looks so good. And then what we have is this absolutely delicious, easy, super healthy, super supportive with all of these amazing sleep ingredients recipe. And literally, I threw this away. I threw this together in no time. So here is my nighttime nosh quesadilla that I will do the deed and I will take a bite and I will tell you how it is because it's
Better. We're all just living through you right now, Erin. Just so you know.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. It is so
good.
Mm-hmm. So these are a wonderful sleep ingredients. Again, you'll get that presentation. So pick through that list of other things that you have, other things that you like, things that you're looking to use, leftovers from the night before, and really be creative. And again, this is a warm, comforting, even a little bit later dinner if you're just looking for something, or even a light mid-afternoon snack, something that isn't going to make you feel really tired because it's heavy. But this is a great little dinner. So hopefully you'll try it. As we always say, let us know how you made it your own. Show us your food photos. Let us know how you like it. But this is super versatile, really easy. So hopefully you'll give it a try. And I'll likely be asleep in an hour. So great.
There you go. Yeah. All right. I got
Sue, call me if I don't,
Yeah.
okay. I was going to say, Sue, call me if I'm not at the speaker series tonight.
I will.
Because I'm asleep.
I will. We had 3 hours. Yeah. All right. 2 questions. Number one, tell me about that fabulous piece of chefware you have on around your waist. And what's that logo on the left-hand side?
These are our new aprons that we have for our culinary nutrition team, our bistro
cute.
aprons I'm sporting. I know.
I
This
feel
is
like
my
you're
first time using
I was
it.
gonna say you're debuting them today. Yeah, it looks
I
good.
know.
Okay, number 2. I'm looking for a knife holder. Is that a magnet behind you?
Yes, it is. Is
Oh,
that
I love it.
yeah. So this is gosh, where the heck did I get it? I may have gotten it from Amazon.
I've seen
This
them
may
as
be-
a strip. I've sseen them as a strip, but I haven't seen it like that.
I
Can
love
we
this
purchase
front
the
and back.
apron? I told you that was going to happen, Erin.
I
I don't even have one face, so we got to decide.
don't
Put this on our
I
website.
don't know, Sue. Can we
I know.
purchase them?
So
I
cute.
know. I love it. So
All right,
yeah,
all
and I
in
do. I
fun.
will say, I love this. I love my
Yeah.
magnetic knife holder. Yeah.
Yeah, all in good fun. Thank you, Erin. Really appreciate
my
that.
gosh.
Great way
Of
to
course.
end
Bon
our
appetito.
exhale.
Yeah.
Wonderful. All right, I'm going to bring back our wonderful host. So Melissa, I'm going to add you right back here. And I think that's a wrap, Melissa.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. How amazing was this today? I have enjoyed every speaker here. And Erin just gets me at the end of every time. She just, when she goes to take a bite, and I always say, I wish like maybe this is a new technology we can invent, that we could smell through our laptops, right? So, or even taste, that would be amazing. But I just want to say thank you
Would
to
be a
all
good
the speakers.
fundraiser. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the chat lighting up about those aprons. And
I
it
know,
would be a
right?
Good fundraiser. I'm gonna pass that on to Cameron. We might have an apron fundraiser. Yeah, I think it could work, Erin.
It's a cook-off.
Yeah.
See, and every time we attend one of the 48 cooking webinars that you have, we can all wear them together.
Oh, I love that idea. Let's
Yeah.
think on that. Yeah.
All righty.
Well, we just thank everyone for being here. Kevin, you were amazing. We loved your presentation. Michelle was amazing with her things about sleep. And this was particularly interesting for me because I'm one that does not sleep very well. So I took away lots of tips and tricks and Erin and the nutrition about this. And when Erin and I was talking about putting the schedule together as speakers, everything just works so beautifully together. So I'm just so glad that everybody was here and had the opportunity to learn and to share their comments in the chat. Tal was amazing, of course. So we're just so thankful to our community. Thank you for being a part of our community, for continuously supporting us as it is our desire, it is our goal, it is our mission to continue to support you as well. So just thank you for being here. Sue, thank you for stepping in and staying here with us all day today. I love when you're here with us as well too. So thank you to everyone who was here. It's just been a pleasure. And any questions, we say this anytime, all the time, any questions that you may have, certainly feel free to reach out to us about anything. If we do not know the answer, we will find out. Kevin, I think this bromeliad plant is like the hit of all hits of all hits. For those of you who had the seed kits, you can start to plant those and use that as your own type of ecotherapy. Personally, we saw so many comments in there about how gardening is so peaceful and so, spiritual to people and things like that. So we wanted to try to bring a little piece of that to you too. So let's continue to work together in our community. This is what we do, and we love what we do. Yeah, Kevin says yes, many. But I will be sending out all the presentations afterwards. This will be recorded and placed on her library. So if you ever want to go back to anything, that will be there too. Give us a few days to give that on the website, but we will get everything out to each and every one of you. So thank you again for spending your afternoon with us. We do appreciate it.